Alright, welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Hit that like and subscribe and let's party. Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the best part. Guys, the live party is the best part, so make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And sometimes whenever I feel like it, so hit that subscribe, ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. Let's also say thank you to my6shirt.com, the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. What is good? Welcome to the party. We got Zippy in the building. What is good? Always good to see you. So today we are going to be going over a debate discussion conversation, if you will, of two people who are in the red pill space. So if you're new here, then we used to cover red pill stuff a lot. And then ever since Kevin Samuels died, RIP, the whole space kind of just collapsed on itself. And so it's just not really been of interest, really. And I think that a lot of people like myself who maybe didn't have great models of like how to get women and stuff growing up, that was great information to see. But when Fresh and Fit was the top of the mountain, then it can only go down. But we have a discussion here with Alex from Playing with Fire, as well as Alexander Grace. This is on the left is Playing with Fire, and this will call Alex. And they're just coming at the entire discussion of dating from different perspectives. And so Alex, Playing with Fire, he is definitely going to be more in the red pill manosphere space, whereas Alex is a little bit more traditional. Shout out to Devon Official. Welcome to the party. Good to see you, brother. As always, guys, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
A lot of women don't have self-awareness. The fact that she says that is not as ironclad a defense as you might think.
You are making a judgment that it's a inferior life.
It's not about judging the women. It's about having compassion.
What's good, brother?
Do you understand the difference?
There's nothing wrong with sleeping with a bunch of women as long as you are honest.
The clean line that you seem to draw around it says like, no, it's completely fine. I think it's a cop-out. Would you have sex with an 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I have a problem with that.
You and I view morality very, very differently. I view it as subjective, and you view.
I think he's wrong. We'll begin the video discussing whether or not the seduction techniques that Alex teaches are morally justifiable.
Pickup artistry and seduction can be used for good and it can be used for negative. So for example, if you've got somebody who's addicted to those highs and instead of working on their own self-esteem, they're just trying to sleep with a bunch of women.
Welcome to the party, brother. Liked and unsubscribed so I can subscribe again. Love it. Welcome to the party, brother.
Contributing to promiscuity and hookup culture and all of that stuff. They're basically doing a negative thing, right? Like in the techniques that you teach on your channel could be pushing somebody further deeper down in addiction. On the other hand, from a positive perspective, you could be taking some guy who doesn't have a lot of confidence, who needs basic tips and instruction, things like that, and then you're helping him get out of his shell, improve people's lives, be the life of the party, be a bit flirtatious, have some fun, give some women some positive experiences.
That was me. Then I was never like socially awkward per se. I just didn't know the ins and outs of how women think. And so, growing up watching Disney movies and rom-coms, I just thought like, oh, that's what you do. And you be a nice guy, not like a nice guy, but you be a good person. And that's enough, but it's not.
And ultimately find a girlfriend and cash out of the dating market. So I'm thinking, what I'm curious about, Alex, is whether or not you think about the morality of the product that you offer, because if somebody wanted to use your techniques and your information in order to just like ruthlessly sleep with a bunch of women, they could absolutely do that. Like, do you think about that at all?
That's interesting. So that's a great place to start, because I never even really, I mean, obviously I've thought about it and thought about how, a lot of guys in this space are not the good guys I was just talking about. But I don't know that I've ever heard them actually address that specifically. And, because it's always about helping men and all that stuff. But great question.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. I've had, debates on my channel, like relating to this. I think that Well, I think we might have a disagreement in terms of our like worldview. I think that there's nothing wrong with sleeping with a bunch of women as long as you are honest, as long as you're upfront with yourself and the woman. You know, and like for some people, I mean, it's like going to the gym can be an addiction, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's bad if it's something that motivates you, helps you get out of your house. It's something that you're working on, right? There's no negative physical consequences to going to the gym. There's no physical consequences to being a player, assuming you're wearing condoms, right? So I don't see it as a bad thing. I think it only becomes a bad thing if you're lying and misleading either yourself or the girls. But again, I teach honesty. I teach that you should be upfront. You know, you shouldn't pussyfoot around like sharing what your intentions are in a socially calibrated way. So I don't see it as a bad thing if they want to just go around and slay girls.
So it seems like he's kind of dodging the question a little bit here. Shout out to Harley Rose. Welcome to the party. Good to see you. Because the question was more about people using the content and the information in a bad way. And so just having consensual sex with a bunch of women isn't a bad thing. The way I understood the question is more like you're in a situation where you just want to sleep with a girl and the girl wants to be with you, and you're maybe not, because I mean he did say be honest, but if you're kind of using game and fudging the details to be like, oh yeah, we'll see where it's going, you definitely could be doing that. And he's kind of dancing around that.
I mean, whatever, fuck a bunch of girls. It's just like I'm personally not at that point, but I can empathize because I was at that point. I have a bunch of like some of my closest friends, my business partner, they're at that point. They just want to go out and fuck a bunch of girls. I don't judge them. I mean, that's kind of where I was. And like, now but I wouldn't say that like I'm superior than them because I'm doing other things. I mean, I think there's advantages to kind of my life because it's more stable and I'm able to build deeper connections. But then on the flip side,
look at his lip. You're on camera. How do you not notice
they're
that?
much more social than me. They're their style's probably better than me because they're going out all the time, so they have to look good. So I don't know. There's like pros and cons, I feel like, to both lifestyles. I wouldn't necessarily just say that mine is like superior to the other one. It's just the lifestyle right now that makes the most sense for me, given my brain chemistry.
And that's fine if you're based on how you're living. But if you have a channel telling prescriptively men how to live their lives, then that doesn't really address the question of what about people who are going to use this for evil.
Okay. So that's a fascinating morality. The honesty clears you out. If I was to come up to you and say, Alex, I'm going to hit you with a crowbar. I'm being completely honest and upfront. This is what I'm about to do. And then I hit you in the face with a crowbar. Would you consider that action moral?
Well, did I consent to it? Do I say yes or hit me, or you just do it without my consent?
You consent.
I consent. You hit me in the face with a crowbar. I would have to be a real dumb fuck to consent to that. I mean, dude, I'm kind of libertarian. I think that as long as I'm not drunk and I'm like an adult, if I consent to it, like I don't really see a big ethical issue there.
Okay, I was gonna say, because again, it seemed like he was trying to weasel out. It's like, dude, this is not a hard question. If you want to, and I say it's okay, then that should be okay.
As long as like I'm not drunk, I'm not pressured or something like that. So it'll be like, first of all, like that's extremely unlikely to happen. But if it did happen, like you're filming a jackass stunt or some kind of funny video, I consent to it, on sound mind and body. I don't see that as an issue.
It's interesting because we talk about, remember, I even shared with you the last time we did the TikTok review, that one guy who was like ways to show, who somebody is just not intelligent enough. And one of the big things was not being able to grapple with analogies or hypothetical situations. And so it seemed like because that was so ridiculous of a situation, that he had to actually form a whole scenario around it. Oh, we're filming a jackass thing, in order to even understand the concept that was being portrayed. Like Zippy said, if you consent, you consent. That shouldn't have been something that you really have to think deeply about, because clearly that's not, that's just a qualifying question. Clearly that's not the information that Alex was interested from Playing with Fire. That's obviously okay. So given that's your position, what about this? And it just strikes me as odd. Again, these are the kinds of things that when we are watching these conversations, debates, all this stuff, these are the little things that we want to look for, so that as we hear more that maybe we're not sure which side it falls, we have a little bit of frame of reference.
Yeah, I mean, let's dig deep into this because I found your reaction
No.
so interesting. I'd have to be so stupid to
Okay.
consent to that. And I'm in my mind screaming, there are women who consent to stupid sexual choices all the time. That doesn't make them moral. Do you know what I mean?
Like, can you give me an example of like what will be one of those?
A woman who is extremely promiscuous is a good example. I'm sleeping with lots of men. She can consent to doing that, but it's not a good idea.
Well, as long if she's practicing safe sex, why is it a negative?
She is potentially harming her capacity to pair bond in the future. And I mean, sure, you've heard all these talking points. This won't be a surprise to you. And she's pricing herself out of the market for good men who don't necessarily want to be with a woman who's had a lot of partners.
Right, but I think again now what Playing with Fire is trying to get at is like, yes, all of those things are bad, but if you understand them and consent to them, then what is the issue?
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, so I think they're half truth. But number one, I feel like the dating market is so bad for men, so good for women, that even a girl who has 200 bodies, 300 bodies, and gain weight can still get a boyfriend like within a week. We've done a lot of Tinder experiments where we show how easy it is for a girl to meet a guy. There'll still be like plenty of guys that will be willing to take her. And I think number two, the pair bonding thing, I don't know. I think the science on that is kind of dubious. I do know that there's a strong correlation thing. So meaning girls who are like virgins, have lower body count, are more capable of pair bonding. But I don't know if it's a correlation or causation. I'm not convinced that there's a causation factor there. That meaning like the actual process of fucking 20 dudes makes a girl unable to pair bond. But also I would say the last thing is like, not everyone is looking for that. Like some people
So what he's saying about this idea of pair bonding, that it ruins your ability to do so. I'm sure that it definitely does. It definitely does. We have science to show that there is a correlation. But what he's bringing up is that as we say all the time, correlation is not causation. And so it could be just that women who are promiscuous also are more likely to be depressed, or more likely to be this, that, an external factor. And I think they're in this weird quasi philosophical spot, because they both agree that it's not good for a woman to rack up a bunch of bodies. But I'm unsure what Alex over on the right here. I'm unsure what his bottom line is. Like where is he trying to go with this? So he says, where is the deception and coercion? I mean, it's a poor choice, but so is assuming and or forcing morals on people. Yeah, I don't know that he's trying to force morals. I think maybe he's just trying to get to the bottom of what he sees as the morality. But let's see. Before we continue, though, make sure you hit the running poll, or if you're watching this on the replay, let me know in the comments below. Would you rather bang 10s every day or find true love with a 4? You get a 4 and it's true love, or you get to bang a different 10 every day. Which one would you choose? Can we also get the likes up, guys? Can we just get 2 more likes? Thank you.
just want to live very like some people like the analogy I would give is people who are daredevils, right? Who do like bungee jumping and shit like that, right? Like very stuff that provokes their whatever nervous system. Like that's kind of it's just very daredevil type of stuff. It's not what I want to do. I'm sure it's not what you want to do, but I can't say that's like a wrong way to live life. It's like, hey, if you want to do that, you want to do that. Some people do the opposite. They fucking want to meditate all day and live in like a monastery. Like when we tell a monk that like, hey man, like, you're not going to be able to get a girl because you're going to be in that fucking, cave for 40 years meditating with a bunch of dudes. It's just like different choices. I think as long as you make the choice with, you're in a sound place of mind.
Yeah, I think Zippy, I think you might be right, because it seems like Playing with Fire is sensing the same thing, that he is already looking at Alex as trying to force his morals on people, like you said. So maybe you got there before me. Shout out to Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party. Said 10s every day if I was in my teens and 20s again. Knowing how life is, the consistency of love with just one person. I said, shit. Me too. I'd rather have a solid, not a solid 4, meaning on the reg, but a 4 that is solid, a ride or die, I'll take it. I'll take it. Harlow says, what's the purpose of morals? It's quite a broad question. I would say the purpose of morals is to, be able to understand what behaviors are going to be best, both to create the greatest amount of well-being and happiness and so on within ourselves, as well as staying away from the greatest amount of suffering, and as well as for other people. So societally, when we have better morals, we have better society.
And you make the conscious decision to, hey, at this point in my life, I want to get laid a lot. I don't see that as anything wrong at all.
Yeah, I'm definitely picking up on that. It's a typical kind of like liberal morality that places consent and freedom as the be all and end all of everything. And I can understand exactly where you're coming from. But to me, it does
more
seem
like libertarian more than liberal. But
yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, I guess I was talking in terms of like a social moral thing. So libertarians a little bit more in the political kind of realm when we're talking about like social moral choices about people's lives. So sorry, that's just what tripped me up. But it does seem like an evasion of responsibility in terms of actually determining, well, what is a good life then? Because it seems to me that you don't necessarily have a strong idea in your mind, correct me if I'm wrong, about what is a good way for human beings to live their life.
That's what you got from this so far? I mean, I'm not saying that I think that he does have a great idea of what is a good life for human beings, but how did you extract that from him saying everybody do whatever works for you? So he says overly focused on the morality without taking into account the individuality. If you ignore the individual, you wind up forcing said morals on them, worsening society. Very, very, very true. We always have to keep the individual, not you as an individual. So when we say keep the individual at the forefront and the top of the pyramid of what we value most, when we say the individual, we don't mean like you as an individual. We mean everybody's right to be an individual. Well said, sir.
Sort of seems like, well, so long as they agree to it, then it's good. Is that correct?
Well, partially. So
yeah, as long as they agree to it, it's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean it's good morally or bad morally. It means it doesn't. Try that again. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily morally good because they consent. It just means it's not morally bad.
I think you're responsible for yourself and probably your family, right? And to a smaller extent, your friends, and maybe to a much, much smaller extent, your community, maybe to some extent, right?
I mean, not that much smaller, but yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be that much smaller. It is smaller, but in that order, it definitely should be yourself, your family, and your community. And those are the things that you should care about a lot. But okay, maybe that's just the different context.
But I don't think you are responsible for other people that you don't know, that you might swipe right on Tinder for what's the best way to live their life. I also don't think there's one universal best way to live their life. Like, you know who Andrew from The Crucible is?
Andrew from The Crucible.
Okay, he's.
Anyone know who Andrew from The Crucible is? Andrew from the the actual. Oh, okay. I remember he was talking about this. He's
become like a really good buddy of mine. We do a lot of debates. He's like a complete 180 different than me. He's hardcore Christian. He fucking prays and goes to church all day. He has 5 children. He's all about like God and Jesus, right? Totally different life than me, right? Like couldn't be more different if we asked, right? But and to me, the stuff that he does makes no sense because I think religion is like nonsense. And I think that like, why the fuck do you need to have 5 kids? It seems like a pain in the ass. But I would never in a million years think that his style of life is worse. It just seems that for him, based on his values, that life makes more sense versus for me, based on my values, my life makes more sense. I mean, there's also some people who want to be like volunteers, right? They don't want to have a business. They don't want to make a lot of money. They just want to like serve people. They want to volunteer in Africa, or they want to do some kind of charity work, right? And again, me personally.
So as before he goes on to you know, his personal thing, I think one of the reasons why I'm not or wasn't so quick to jump on Alex trying to preach about morality is because though I haven't really watched his channel much lately, similar to what Indie Film said, that you know, after a breakup, I found his channel, and it definitely helped me. But and definitely new concepts, and he was one of the first people that I started to watch and see, like, oh, so like, you know, just texting her good morning when you're not even like a thing, she's not gonna like that. Oh, okay.
Beta.
I was such a beta. I was as blue pill, whatever, you know, imagine whatever you think of as a blue pill beta guy, and that was me. I just didn't know any better. I just didn't know any better. And so as toxic, you know, I hate that how that word is thrown around, but the red pill stuff can very well be toxic. There is a lot of great information for young men. It's just always about, is it, you know, is it presented in the best way? Zippy says religion clouds morality much of the time. I understand the construct of doing better flawed, while trying to do better is about all you can do. Fair. Yep. Clinton Simp works in beta. All right. Thank you very much.
I want to make money. I want to have a business, right?
Money.
But again, I wouldn't say that that person who's a volunteer is like picking an inferior type of life. It's just different. I think there's some universal principles of what would make a good life. I think being healthy. I think that having self-awareness. I think that having good relationships with, like, at least friends and family.
Or as we call it, community.
Eating healthy. So I do think there are some universal principles of what creates a good life. But I think there's just different directions you can go in, and one is not better than the other. It just comes down to your values and, you know, the things that, you know, you make you happy and things that don't make you happy. Like Andrew legitimately probably gets really fucking happy every time he goes to church and prays. It probably brings him a lot of happiness, you know, when he's sitting and praying to God. For me, that would be like fucking miserable. But again, we're different people.
Totally agree.
But you agree that some values are better than others?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, what I was saying is I agree that some lifestyles, there's some universal factors that will make some lifestyles better than the other. Like,
again, even though I seem to be in terms of you know, who is more, I mean, you know, Alex hasn't really said much, but despite the fact that we're all like, okay, don't push your morals and whatever, I'm seeing from Playing with Fire that he is not somebody who likes to answer the question that's been asked. He likes to answer the question that he wants to answer. Are some values better than others? Not are some lifestyles better than others? For others, are some values better than others?
Like someone who eats healthy on average will have a better lifestyle than someone who eats like shit. Someone who exercises will on average have a better lifestyle than someone who doesn't. Someone who has close relationships with friends and family will on average be better than someone who doesn't. So there are some universal things that we can look at.
Okay, so let me jump in there. That's kind of my point, is that
what is
I would just include in that list, not doing hedonism and promiscuity is a better value than just indulging those kind of animal instincts. And therefore, using consent or honesty as the measure of morality evades responsibility for actually determining whether or not that's a better life or a worse life, a better value or a worse value.
Yeah, so like,
this is the reason this isn't going well so far. The reason that they're kind of talking past each other is you need to start on a central point. You need to have a question or a prompt or an idea or something specific that you're talking about. And then you can go off on tangents. You go down this avenue and that avenue. But what is the basis here? That's the problem with the conversation itself. Zippy says, is it too much to say try and do better versus be moral while standing on a soapbox looking down? I may be overemphasizing the soapbox. I don't think you are, sir. I think you're absolutely right. There are those two different things that people who, you know, like all of us here will tell each other, you know, hey, you got to work on what you're good at and be the best person you could be, and so on and so forth, without putting ourselves above, like Playing with Fire is saying, that it's just different. And that doesn't make anybody better or worse on that basis. That doesn't mean that certain values aren't better or worse. That doesn't mean that certain people might be better than others. but it mean by that virtue, you're not better. It's just giving advice. I wanted folks said comes down to how you choose to interpret better. Yeah. And I mean, that's a, that's getting really, again, very philosophical. And I'm hoping they're going to get into that, because that seems to be where Alex wants to, like, that seems to be the conversation that Alex wants to have, but he's just not finding anywhere to land and let it jump off. You know what I mean? Harley Rose said, are morals subjective or objective? I personally believe that morals in the vacuum of space, they are subjective. But I do believe that as humans, if we understand the purpose, remember you asked me about what is the purpose of morals. If we agree on the purpose of those morals, then once we agree to that purpose, at that point, there are objective moves to get closer to that goal or further away from that goal. And so the example that's often used is the game of chess. There's no rules inherent to the universe to make chess. We made it up. It's a game that was made up. There's no laws of physics or anything. It's just chess. But once we decide, okay, here are the rules, and the point is to trap the king. Once you know that is the purpose, and you understand the rules, then objectively putting your pawn right in front of the king when he's not checked is a worse move than putting anything else. So I believe that morals are subjective. However, we live in a world where we can extract from that subjectivity an objective goal that we all agree upon. And I think that's what, whenever we're talking about morality, we're talking about that game of trying to get to as close to the most possible well-being for as many people as possible versus the worst possible suffering for the most amount of people. That's the spectrum that we're talking about. And so once we decide that that's the spectrum we're talking about, then it becomes objective. Good question, though. How selfish is too selfish? Unwanted foe asked. That's another one. That's a tough one. I mean, depends on what we're talking about, right? Depends on what we're talking about. Devon says, yep, meta ethics versus ethics for society, essentially. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, exactly. Well said.
If I'm to look at it from a purely personal perspective, like how I feel right now, I would generally agree with you, because that's...
Hey, shout out to Kamiko Williams. Welcome to the party. Said, so morality can't, so can morality ever be objective? Yes, once we decide what that morality is for. Once we decide we want to live in a world where it hurts me when somebody punches me in the face. I assume that, you don't want people punching you in the face. Okay, we agree that we don't want people punching each other in the face. At that point, punching somebody in the face is objectively immoral. But it's not necessarily so if it's subjective, then if you're living on a planet, in another universe where nothing you do affects anybody but yourself, then that changes things. You haven't come to that agreement, so you don't live in a universe where you have that agreement. And so if you like whatever you want to do, it doesn't have any effect on anything. So I think morals really talk about the relationship between actions, and more the relationship between actions and their effects, cause and effect. But you guys are coming at me tonight. All right, welcome to the party. You guys are having a little discussion, but great questions, guys. Great question. Kamiko says, in the vacuum of space is an extreme hypothetical. Indeed it is. That's why but it does exist, or it did exist before we had humans, before we had civilization, before we had society, before we had life on Earth. There was the vacuum of space. And I don't think that there is any objective morality to that situation. I don't think there's anything that you could say is right or wrong in that situation. It's only once you have beings that are interacting with each other that have consciousness and desires that morality comes into play. So Zippy says, punching in the face immoral, so boxing and MMA is out. I know you're joking, but of course not, because what did we say? As long as you consent to something, then you're consenting. You're the one that said that, aren't you? If you consent, you consent. but it's specifically without doing this without consent is the immoral act. So it's not the punching in the face. It's the inflicting pain on another person who doesn't want that pain inflicted on them. Kamiko, sorry about that, says, so can we rationalize why morality can be subjective using anything other than an extreme hypothetical? Such as? Devon said the subjectivity is a description of the actions intrinsically. Once we have a system and a common goal, that's where objectivity enters.
Bingo.
Exactly. Zippy says, ultimately, morality is subjective because it's always defined by the group. Thus, it can only be subjective. Exactly. So, I mean, we say in the vacuum of space just to take away all the ideas of the fact that, our actions would have effects for other people. But it doesn't have to be in the vacuum of space. Just if you were the only person alive, then it wouldn't matter. But you're not the only person who's alive. So it does matter. So practically, yes, morals are objective because we are already playing that game. But philosophically, if we talk about the morals themselves, then it's only because we are in this situation that morals are objective, or we treat morals as objective.
What makes me happier now. But if I was to look at it like universally, I would not agree. I think that it's just different strokes for different pokes. Are we talking about men and women or both right now?
Let's talk about women first. So talk me through, in what circumstance is it a good idea for a woman to be sleeping around a lot? Like,
I just gave you an example. If you're living on a planet by yourself and there's nobody else around, then it's subjective.
Walk me through that value system. I can't even conceptualize it.
Well, if the woman enjoys having, enjoys novelty and having a lot of casual sex, right?
Okay, so her pleasure is the most important thing. So, and that would like,
he's smuggling in all these words. When did he say most important thing? It's just the driving desire behind it. Doesn't mean that's the most important thing. He's putting the cart before the horse. Let's back that up again.
Well, if the woman enjoys having, enjoys novelty and having a lot of casual sex, right?
Okay, so her pleasure is the most important thing. So, and that would like eradicate.
No, it doesn't have to be the most important thing. It could be one thing that's important to her, right? She might work like fucking 50 hours a week, and this is how she de-stresses. She might have anxiety, and this is what brings her out of her shell. I don't know. There could be many factors, but I think for most women, it's not like a permanent thing. They go through that phase, and then eventually, at some point, they want to get into a relationship. And I'm just not convinced at all that because they went through their whole phase, they're not going to be able to get into a relationship. I've just seen so many counter examples, and I think any girl, even if she's fucked 500 dudes, can still find a.
I wish I still had my haram button for this one.
Good relationship. So yeah.
So, I mean, again, I am of the opinion that, yes, it is a good idea for women not to rack up a body count because of the pair bonding, and it can have an effect. That doesn't mean that it will happen, that you absolutely will not be able to love somebody properly because you've been ran through. Those are two different things. And so Playing with Fire is saying the first, that it's probably not a good idea because these are possible side effects and risks. And then Alex is saying, so this is going to happen? It's like, well, hold on. Whoa. I'm just saying these are a possibility. And this is a possibility. And this is something that you want to weigh when you are going to give said consent. Wanted Foe said it would be interested to see how many of those examples he has where the marriage is happy and lasts a long time. That is the other side of the coin that, while it may not necessarily make it impossible for you to love someone, at the end of the day, balance of probabilities, it's going to make it harder. And again, just because it's made harder doesn't mean it's impossible. Like this is something that comes up with when, to use an analogy of parents hitting their kids. And so people, I'm not, obviously I don't have kids, preface with that disclaimer. I don't have kids, but I was hit as a kid, and I think it fucked me up. I don't think it helped me learn anything, especially the reasons I was getting hit and stuff like that. And so you hear a lot of people saying that. I'll address this in a minute. Thank you, sir. You hear a lot of people saying, well, I was hit and I turned out fine. It's like, okay, yes, you are fine. You are not some crazy messed up. But how do you know that you wouldn't have been a better person had you not been hit? You don't know that. And so I think it's the same thing here, that you could definitely find a husband if you've been ran through, but you don't know that maybe you could have either had a better husband or a better relationship with that same husband had you not been ran through. But let's say thank you to Unwanted Foe. Yep, Morty picks his head up because he knows. Let's give a treat first. That's right, every single super chat comes with a treat for Morty. Thank you, sir. What does he say? In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Dog, it is communion time. Thank you, sir. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, that's a separate topic, and there's some nuance to it. I'm not saying I'm going to completely disagree with you once we get to that point in the conversation, but I am still curious about your answer when I asked what would be the benefit to her, like what value system would be good, and your answer was, well, if it feels good or if it brings her kind of pleasure.
Yeah.
Happiness. Well, like
yeah, what's wrong with that? People do stuff just for happiness all the time. And I understand the point that he's trying to say, that, okay, you're doing this, but it has these side effects. There's a lot of things like that. As long as you are aware of the effects and you are an adult who can choose that, then what's the issue? What's the issue? Again, I'm certainly somebody who would warn women not to, have a whole face, try to keep your butt, all that stuff that you hear from the red pill space. Most of it. But there's something missing there. Quantex says, can you place the word with morality with just trying to do the right thing? It doesn't have to be the better than thou feeling that proclaiming what is and isn't moral does. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the question comes down to what is the right thing. And so if that's what we're talking about, then yeah, absolutely. You don't have to get on a high horse or a soapbox in order to talk about, what is right and what is less right and what is wrong. Harley says, it's not so much a parabon issue. It's just more dangerous for women to do so. If a woman chooses to do so, that's her own accord. However, we should not encourage women to do so.
bingo.
Well said. Well said. So he said, I think the shock value of being spanked is a good thing, but it needs to follow through something teaching. And well, it depends. It depends on what we're talking about. What if you accidentally, what if you spilled a glass of water at the dinner table? Is that something you should be spanked over? I wasn't a bad kid. There is very, 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 very few things that I got hit for that could be even argued that I should have been hit for. And, I'm sure that there's the exceptions make the rule. So I'm sure there's kids that you need to, come in strong, especially single mother, and it's a big kid, and he's, at age 7, he's already as big as his mom, stuff like that. Maybe, but on a balance of probabilities, if you can, if your child can reason as to make the connection between why they got hit and the pain of being hit, then they have enough reasoning for you to be able to explain to them that reasoning. And if they're not old enough or smart enough to understand that reasoning, then the spanking ain't gonna do shit, because it's not gonna work. It's like when people, again, for those of you who don't know, I'm a professional dog trainer, and so it's like when people yell at their dogs to stop barking. It's like if the dog knew that what you were saying, then it would probably stop barking. So just yelling more and more and more and more is not doing anything, and is likely making it worse. So I got to disagree hard there. Kabiko says, so without a system to dictate what is and isn't moral, there's no morality? Yeah, I think so. I'm going to star that. I might come back to this and just and say no, but I don't know about Devon, but I say no. There's no morality without not so much systems, but beings. It's about conscious beings. A lone conscious being can't. I don't. At least I can't think of a situation where a conscious being that is completely alone and unable to affect other beings what could that being do that we would call immoral? And I don't know. Maybe there's an answer. If you have the answer, then you could very easily change my mind. But I think that's what we're talking about. It's about interacting consciousness. And if this is an answer to what I just said, obviously now we're talking about another being. There's the kid, and there's the person doing, whatever. So we said experience is a double-edged sword. The problem is not the morality involved, but the ability to reflect and analyze yourself. If you refuse to grow and mature, being run through does not matter. True. Hey, shout out to Rabbi Glickman. Welcome to the party. Said I wasn't as tall as my mother until I was in the 11th grade. I probably passed my mom in height around 8th grade. But that's only because my mom is 5 foot tall, and I have not grown since then. Well, welcome to the party. Zippy said, if you spank your kid over minor stuff, that's bad parenting issue. Like most of the Dr. Spock stuff. I don't know what that is, but I agree. Oh, gotcha. Okay. I jumped ahead. I thought you were talking about something. So if you minor kid stuff, that's bad parenting. So that's what I'm talking about. And then we, if we're talking about what is minor kid stuff, then like oftentimes when I would get hit, it was for forgetting to do my chores or getting anything below a B on a test, or I came home late, and stuff like that. So I mean, to me, that's minor kid stuff. To me, that's stuff that, I can be grounded. You can take away my PlayStation and whatever. I don't think that violence helped that situation at all. Quantex said, I believe spanking should be used for more embarrassment than to hurt your kids into listening. Interesting. Okay. I haven't heard that take before. I like that. I mean, I'm still against it, but if that's the way you're using it, that's certainly preferable than beating the crap out of your kid. We said just before that, bad parenting is bad parenting and comes with a plethora of bad things. Yep. Okay, so Dr. Spock was a popular parenting guru in the 70s and 80s. Lots of spare the rod, spoil the child, ignore them going nuts. Yeah, nah, that ain't gonna work either. It is indeed a balance. All right, where are we here?
As well, if it feels good or if it brings her kind of pleasure.
Happiness. Well, like for example, like what's the benefit of me being obsessed with Game of Thrones and watching every episode, reading every book, right? There's no benefit at all. Like, what's the point of me getting Game of Thrones tattoo and being like the biggest fucking Game of Thrones fanboy? But it gives me pleasure. I'm fascinated by it, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with pleasure in moderation, right? If all you're doing is seeking pleasure, I do think that can become problematic long term. But if you're balancing out short-term pleasure along with long-term, goal achievement, I think that's totally fine.
Or discipline. Yeah.
What about heroin?
What? Well, heroin is...
What about heroin? I'm trying to... Is he trying to say that as long as you only do a little bit of heroin, that it's okay? That theoretically is absolutely the case. The problem is that it's addictive. So you're not going to just do a little bit. Maybe he's going to argue that sex is addictive. Let's see.
Physically very, very detrimental for you.
Okay.
Versus
what about doom scrolling on TikTok?
Is that when you just spend the whole time just
yep, that's definitely bad.
I believe that's like bad for your brain chemistry. I haven't really seen like the science on that, but I feel like I've heard
I mean, it's definitely bad for bad for you. But again, if we're talking about moderation, anything in moderation typically is not going to be a big deal. And just be, you don't have to have a specific reason of making your life materially better overall in every little thing that you do. Like sometimes you just want to have fun. Sometimes a girl just wants to have fun, right? So we said that's why the 90s had issues with wild kids. No helicopter parenting focused on nouveau helicopter parenting focused on spoiling and participation trophies. Come on, bro. I need help. I could read pretty well, but I need a little bit more help. 2 seconds. Just take the extra 2 seconds.
People saying that. But if it, look, in moderation, if it brings you pleasure to do that for half an hour a day, that's fine, right? As long as you got shit going on in your life. Like, dude, I fucking watch, like, I'm extremely goal oriented, but I'll spend like an hour watching Game of Thrones theory videos, right? Like, it's purely just for my entertainment.
He's probably talking about Alt-Shift-X. Guys, if you are a Game of Thrones fan, and you especially if you really like the lore, but you haven't read the books, go to the channel Alt-Shift-X. The way that he breaks this stuff down, it is incredible. And there's so much from the books that I'm not going to read the books, not knowing that whether or not it's going to end before George R.R. Martin dies. But there's so much cool stuff there. Just a little aside.
Like, I do think that life is a combination of short-term pleasure and long-term goal achievement. And like, the mix can be different for every person, right? But I think you do kind of need, I don't know. I mean, maybe some people can go just purely long-term goal achievement with no short-term pleasure. I don't think I could be one of those people. You know, I need a little bit, at least something.
Yeah, no, I think that's a false dichotomy. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to determine in your value system whether or not you differentiate between a pleasure that is like got a positive source or a pleasure that has a negative source, because lots of people can feel pleasurable evading their problems, you know, shooting up drugs, distracting themselves. A lot of people can feel pleasure hurting other people because, you know, they're enjoying the power trip and things like that. I wouldn't say that the fact that they feel good doing that in any way makes it a justifiable or a moral choice. I'm just curious if you share that perspective.
Right. Well, with the hurting other people is you're causing harm to a different person, right? So that's the big thing. So, for example, the equivalent of that would be if you have like HIV and you don't tell the partner and you give it to them, that would be the equivalent of that. So yeah, that would be wrong because you're causing harm to other people. Heroin is an addictive drug that is very, very bad for you physically, right? So
it's actually not that bad for you in the you know, the way. I'm not telling you to do it, but just as somebody who has spent a lot of time looking into this, it's not. It's the fact that it's addictive. It's the fact that you're going to throw your life away. It's the fact that you're going to, you know, I mean, it's damaging to your liver and stuff. But alcohol is worse for your body in the same amounts. It's just that, again, you're going to get addicted and do a lot more and sell all your stuff and steal from your parents and sell your dog.
Casual sex, again, is also not like that. I viewed more as like being addicted to going to the gym or being addicted to like a TV show. Like, is it like, I guess the question would be like, do you think it is good or bad that like I watch a shitload of Game of Thrones and I'm addicted to it?
You really want to talk about Game of Thrones?
well, because it's
well, at least he's grounding the conversation in an example. It's very difficult to grab onto this stuff when you're talking about the concepts and you haven't really established, like, if this was the 7th time they had talked and they just jumped in and they had an understanding of each other and they weren't doing this for a podcast or a video or whatever, then the fact that we don't have a grounding is difficult. So that's what he's doing. It's not about the Game of Thrones. It's just like we're trying to use something. Did you just say that smack is better for you than alcohol? Yup. If you do the damage to your liver, the damage to your liver that you will get from being an alcoholic is way worse than a heroin addict. Again, it's not the actual substance that's that bad for you in comparison to other drugs.
I'm trying to make an analogy because I would say it's like neither. It's not good or bad, right? It's neutral. It's just something that makes me happy, right? That doesn't really seem to harm me. And I would say casual sex can be exactly like that. When I was in my mid to late 20s, that's what casual sex was for me.
I don't know. Google it.
It was something that made me happy that didn't really have any negative downside. In fact, I would say that for a guy, it can actually motivate you to get in better shape, right? Because you realize you can get laid more if you're working out, cause you to develop your social skills, right? So I would say for me, it was a massive positive at the time and kind of caused me to get out of my apathetic shell that I had in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. But I can see how for some people it would be negative. I just don't see the action of having casual sex as a negative in of itself. I see it as a neutral.
Yeah, I can think we've drilled down. There's not much left to go there. Is that fundamentally you don't view casual sex as harmful in any way?
He didn't, again, smuggling in things. He didn't say in any way. He didn't say in any way. Look, I'm doing a show about dating and sex and stuff like that. We're not talking about heroin. I'm just using an example. If you care that much, then you go Google it. I'm just giving you my personal opinion based on what I've known and read and seen and heard. If you're free to disagree, if I'm wrong, then you provide the source, and they'll be like, oh, Kamiko was right, I was wrong, we can move on. But that's not what we're talking about right now.
Well, it could be for some people, but just in essence, no. Just kind of like how you said earlier, pickup can be good or bad, right? It's neutral. It just sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad. I view casual sex the same way. Can be.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if I would call it a tool, but it's just I mean, it's just an action. And it can be good in certain circumstances and not so good in other circumstances. It can be good in some frequencies and not so good in other frequencies. Again, I'm just still like, what are you trying to get at, Alex?
Good or bad.
And that actually brings us full circle back to why I was initially asking this question is you must be aware that some people.
If you look through the studies that Portugal did when they were opening their shoot up centers, that's where you'll find a lot of that stuff. I mean, that's just not the. I mean, if you guys don't have that conversation in the chat, go for it. But I just don't want to derail the show based on a simple example.
Will be using your content.
But if you do find conflicting information, I will definitely take the time to look at it and say that you were correct and I was not. Wanted Fellow said maybe he'll argue how in the casual sex scene there's a lot of unprotected sex, so STI spreading can happen without your realizing. Possibly. I think that especially if you're talking about drugs and bringing up heroin, then certainly there is a much easier way to prevent against that by getting tested regularly, using condoms and stuff like that, and all that stuff. All right, well then don't. I mean, these were independent people independent bodies that were doing studies to determine whether or not they were going to open these drug shoot up centers. So they wanted to know, is this good or is this bad? Not, we want to open this, so let's see. That's, I mean, maybe there was, but again, I don't know. That's not what this show is about. If you would like to go look for it and show me where I'm wrong, I'm happy to say I'm wrong. But as far as I've read, that it is what it is. The fact that you didn't know that, or you didn't, again, if you have information, this is what I always tell you guys. Don't ask for a source if you don't have one yourself. Where's your source saying that alcohol is worse than heroin? I'm the one doing a live show right now. What are you doing? You're just sitting there. So go Google if you want to have this conversation. I'm telling you that I will derail the show. If you bring up something that I've said that I was wrong, I will derail the show to say, okay, I said that heroin is not as bad for your body as alcohol in the same amounts, but Kamiko brought this study and I'm wrong. I'm very, very willing to do that. I'm 100% willing to do that. But right at this moment, I'm trying to entertain the rest of everybody else who is watching this now and the people who are going to watch this after. And I'm very glad that you're here, Kamiko. I'm very glad that you're engaging and this is great to have anybody new. But I can't derail the show just of one little thing I said. Yeah, I mean, definitely learn something new every day. I know I certainly do. And maybe it's all bullshit. Maybe it's all bullshit. I wasn't, quoting it as some like smarter than you thing. It was just a toss away like, well, actually, so maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's all bullshit. But I don't know. I do not know. All right, where were we?
Do casual sex the same way. Can be good or bad.
And that actually brings us full circle back to why I was initially asking this question is you must be aware that some people will be using your content to try and get casual sex for doing it for the bad reasons. And I was wondering if you had those people in mind, or if you had the people like who are more following out your story in mind when you're making your content. But I think I've got.
Okay. I think he's going to say, I think he's going to toss that away. But at the end of the day, if you're outright saying, be honest about this, then what else can he do? What else can he do? If you're teaching people how to build a gun, then all you can do is tell people, use this responsibly. You can't control how they're going to use it.
Got my answer to that question. I am curious to know about the consent that you brought up with regards to like hitting you in the face with a crowbar, because it made me think about BDSM. Is that something that you're into?
What? I mean, A little bit, but definitely not to that extent. Definitely don't have my girlfriend whack me with a crowbar. Much more mild than that. Much more mild. Like 20 levels more mild.
Just a little finger in the butt.
Sure. Okay. So do you think that a woman who enjoys being hit and physically harmed, if she derives pleasure from that makes it okay?
Yup.
Well, the premise of BDSM, as far as I know, it's like all supposed to be like highly consensual. There's safe words. But I mean, if there's like physical damage to the girl, like then no, it's not good. But if a girl, for example, likes to be spanked really hard, where there's a handprint on her ass for 2 days, if that's what she wants, then I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah. What's wrong with that? Rico says, so you're suggesting that if smack was sold over the counter legally, that your total deaths per year claim would still hold true? Not necessarily, because of the addiction factor, but that was my whole point, is that you die and lose and ruin your life and your body from heroin because of how much you do, not because of how bad the substance actually is. That was my point. So no, I don't believe that. But yes, I do want to legalize it all. Absolutely. If we could, again, going back to Portugal, the number of deaths has dramatically gone down because of these centers.
But yeah, if you're actually going to cause physical damage to the girl, then that gets into a different category.
Okay, so obviously you can derive pleasure from like a psychological release. So if you feel like shamed about yourself or inferior, being put in your place, even harmed, can kind of give you like a, yes, I'm finally being treated like the piece of dirt that I am. I'm not saying this is representative of all BDSM, but it certainly can be for a lot of these women. And then after they exit that lifestyle and they seek therapy, they recognize that their desire to be hurt wasn't coming from a healthy place. Is that something that you recognize or like agree with, or do you dispute that?
No, I'm sure that can happen. I do think, though, kinks are weird. Like, are you familiar with the Mr. Slave guy who used to be on my channel? Did you ever watch those live streams? No. Okay, this guy was a fuck.
He brought it up before, and then I thought that's when he was going to talk about it. But
character. He basically, he walked around in the mask, and he had a mistress, and she would boss him around and make him like fucking eat dog treats and bang and like hit him. And he never had sex with her, and he did her laundry. I look at that and I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, this is insanity. But I've had so many conversations with him, and he's like, hey, this is what makes me happy. Regular sex does not make me happy. I don't enjoy it. I've had regular sex. This is what makes me happy, right? Could that guy benefit from therapy? I'm sure he could. But I think that kinks are not always logical. I think if you take it like a few levels back, something like that's a little bit more mild, like role play or something like that, like I love it when my girlfriend puts on like a schoolgirl outfit or something like that. Like, it's just a kink. Like, at the end of the day, I don't actually want to fuck a schoolgirl. A lot of girls have grape fantasies, right? But not a single one of those girls actually wants to get raped. So I think like things in the bedroom and like kink stuff doesn't always translate onto real life traumas, but they can.
Mm-hmm.
This Mr. Slave guy, it sounds like it's pretty real for him if he's eating dog shit.
Dog food. I've never seen any dog food. Yeah, that guy's a basket case. Yeah, that's in a very extreme example,
But yeah, you guys are exactly right. Exactly. Frames arguments are typically made from a place of dishonesty, and it may not even be conscious dishonesty. It may be a subconscious realization that I don't really know where to go with this. I thought he was going to say something else. I thought he was going to be a dick. I thought he was going to do this, and now I don't really know what to do. So I'm going to take the most wild example I could think of and try to throw at him as a gotcha. I mean. Yeah, his nose is like, but hey, we don't body shame here, okay? We don't body shame, but that nose is fucked up.
Okay, I guess like I'll be satisfied to drop this one, I suppose, if I'm certain that you've kind of understood my point, I suppose, which is that consent and honesty, which is what you're talking about in the first instance. Okay. Like, you can sleep with women as long as you're honest about it. I don't think is a valid measure of morality. It sounds like you think maybe there's some truth to that, but maybe it's not completely truth. But I don't.
So it sounds like he's making the case that it is the man's responsibility to make sure that women don't rack up a body count. That seems infantilizing, and that seems like the bigotry of low expectations. That, oh, these women don't know what they're doing. So you have to be the one to make sure that even if she says that she consents to it, because you know better than her that she's wrong, you shouldn't sleep with her? What? Got Owen Wilson with that nose. Owen Wilson jealous. Wow, that's a good nose. Zippy said he has a good scare too. The guy on the good scare? What are you talking about?
I don't think that just because people consent to it is a good idea, because we have
Again, nobody said that. Nobody said just because we consent, it's a good idea. Remember, the example that he used was hitting PWF with a crowbar in the face. So nobody said that was a good idea. We just said it wasn't immoral as long as there is consent. Oh, it got a good scare on Scar. Oh, let's see. Where? It looks like his, like, it looks like from here, it just went like, wah. I don't know, but moving on.
culture that is morally bereft, and a bunch of people who are deeply traumatized or just plain stupid or haven't been educated about these things. And so I look at the female promiscuity that's going on in the culture and the hookup culture, and I don't think, well, so long as the women are okay with it, that's okay. I think, where are the fathers? Where is the culture telling them that how harmful this is? Where's the promotion of positive sources of pleasure that are character building and focused on family?
Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you.
It's on the men. It's on the men to make sure that women have good lives. It's men's fault that women sleep with so many guys. This is crazy. This is crazy. So let's go back to our running poll. Would you rather bang 10s every day or find true love with a 4? And I did not expect this, but 57% of you said bang 10s, with only 43% said loving a 4. Well, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. I shouldn't be surprised. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't know, man. If you answered bang 10s, have you ever been in love? I'm just, that is a very, that is a linchpin for this. Because if you've never been in love, then it makes sense to me why I mean, you know, I'm sure you could, if you're not a virgin, you could imagine having sex with a 10 more when you had sex with a 5, versus if you never been in love, imagining being in love. But I don't know. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. Like, how long are you going to keep that up? And what are you going to do when you're older? I mean, people definitely do it, but, you know, Unwanted Fellow said, kind of curious about the age difference of who voted for each. That's, yeah, I wish, you know, obviously we want to keep it anonymous and just get a broad thing. But yeah, that would be interesting too, an age breakdown. So, all right, let's do this. I got you.
Family values. I don't think it's enough to be like, okay, well, we live in a degenerate society where we've let these women down. A lot of them were molested as children, and so therefore they're into BDSM and hookup culture, but they're consenting to it now, so that's okay. To me, that's a cop-out, and that's letting everybody down. I think we need to have a much more serious conversation about that, because at the moment, it seems to me that the argument of morality in terms of, well, people are consenting to it, we're just being honest, is like a gold mine for male predators and creeps and things like that, who are trying to convince women to engage in acts that are benefiting them sexually, but actually harmful to the women.
Yeah, so I think that you and I view morality very, very differently. I view it as subjective, and you view it as much more objective, where there's good morals, there's bad morals. I don't view it like that. I think I have what my morals are, but I can recognize that. But I don't think my morals are superior to your morals, even though we have different morals. I just think like that's what you believe is right. I think there's.
This is what gets into Michael Malice's question about, you know, you can always, or a good, you know, kind of litmus test question for what he considers the left versus the right, is that when you ask the question, are some people better than other people? If you have what he would call a conservative, then you just get a yes. Some people are better than other people. Whereas those who are on the left will say, well, you know, it depends on, and you'll get a whole spiel. So that's interesting that he said that, because I certainly wouldn't put him on the left. But I don't know. Interesting. So he says, I'm not built for relationships of any kind. I'm nearly 50 and live under a rock. But it's not about you being built for the relationship. We're saying this relationship is built for you. And so let's say it's not just love, but you find, with the 4, you find a perfect, maybe not perfect, but as perfect as we would understand a human relationship to be. If you could be yourself, and if they were themselves, and all of that, that's really, what I meant. But fair enough. Context said, if you ain't trying cotton after 25, then you ain't, man.
Come on, man.
I agree. I think that the red pill stuff, the banging tens, the trolling for sliz, that's a young man's game. That's a young man's game.
Some universal things, right? Like obviously murder, theft, lying, because and the common theme is it causes harm to another person, like directly, right? Harm that's not consented to, right? No one actually agreed to be murdered or whatever.
Right. So I redid the poll, and Guamtech, you were thinking exactly what I was with the 25. So now it's would you bang 10s every day or find a perfect relationship with a 4? And are you over or under 25? So we have 10 for over 25, 10 if you're under 25, 4 if you're under 25, and 4 if you're over 25.
Or to be stolen from. But I think that there's spectrums of morality, and if you're not causing harm to other people, and it's consensual, again, I don't view myself as morally superior to those guys who are fucking, like 5 girls a week. Nor do I think that Andrew, who's married with kids, is living a more morally superior life than me. I don't. I just see that as
really. I mean, that's real subjectivity. If you don't think that somebody who is out here, like, I'm not saying necessarily that you're doing immoral things, but certainly there is a spectrum between immoral and moral. And if Andrew's going to church and taking care of his family, and you're out strolling for pussy all the time, I would probably say that he's, helping more of that well-being come about. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Indeed, it is subjective. You got it, Kamiko. You got it.
As like you like to eat pasta, I like to eat sushi. You like skiing, I like fucking mountain biking. We just have different things that interest us. But I don't see one of those as morally superior, because again, I think morals are largely subjective with some universal things.
Yeah, see, that's a very liberal, definitely classically liberal, but there is no wrong or right. There's just my truth. That's a very and I'm not putting this on them, but putting this on him. But that's where that ideology usually lies. So it's just interesting to see outside of that.
That I counted for. That's a key difference here.
So would you have sex with an 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I have a problem with that because
me too. I don't know how old he is. Now, again, I wouldn't say he should be arrested, but I'd certainly give him a side eye if he's like, yo, I banged an 18-year-old last night. Like, I mean, like, it's not illegal, but like, at least, is she almost 19? Like, Monjafo said, is that really a difference in morals or a difference in responsibilities? Yeah, I think, again, because they didn't really center and ground this conversation, they're a little bit all over the place. And some of the things they're talking about are morality, and some of the things they're talking about is lifestyle, and some of the things talking about is culture and preference and all that kind of stuff. Let that be a lesson. That if you, because it's Alexander Grace here, he's the one who is hosting this conversation. So he really should be in the position of driving the conversation. Remember when we talked about Vivek Ramaswamy when he was talking to Libs of TikTok, and it's like we had heard his policy positions and stuff like that very, very recently. That wasn't what we were looking at. We were looking at, okay, how well does he drive a conversation, because it was his podcast, and he did really well. We do that, and now we can see very clearly the differences between how Vivek ran his conversation and how Grace is running this conversation. And yeah, let's find that out, because he cannot be. Can we get a Wikipedia? He's got to be big enough for let's see. Wikipedia. Is this him? I don't think this is him. No. Okay, hold on. What does Reddit say? Always good for Reddit. No, nothing here. I don't know. I don't think we're gonna find it. If shout out to anybody who could find Alex from Playing with Fire's age. I'm very, very interested. He's gotta be at least 35. At least 35. Maybe they'll bring it up. But that's, that's a sketchy one. Zippy says, unwanted foe. Well, if you're messing up your responsibilities to your life and your life is a mess, that could well be a moral issue. True, but I don't think that's where they're going with it. That's certainly not what they're trying to do.
Because as like a 30-plus-year-old man, I don't think she has the appropriate decision-making ability to be able to handle the power differential between the two of you. And so the fact that she's consenting, I don't think morally lets you off the hook for what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna agree to disagree on that one. I think that as long as the girl is not drunk, she's sober, and you're not like in a situation where you're pressuring her. Like, I would think it's wrong if you're her boss and she's the secretary, right?
Well, I'm thinking about this again because as if you say I'm 50-50 on being an 18-year-old, sex is fine, I guess, but I can do without, and certainly. But when you said, "Would you have sex with an 18-year-old?" It comes to mind as like, oh, she's an 18-year-old. Let me go seek her out because she's 18. That would be sketchy. If she happens to be, if she happens to look and act mature and you get along at least well enough to sleep together, and then you find out that she's 18, I probably would, want to back off, but I certainly wouldn't feel like I did something horrible because I know that I'm not attracted to children in the first place. So if there was somebody that I was attracted to, they would be, at least old enough. And certainly if they're not young enough for me to ask, like, how old are you? Which is a whole other thing. Definitely always ask. But, I'm just saying, if I was in that situation, then I don't know. It would be tough because it's the creepy thing is seeking out a girl because she's 18. That's really where I sit.
Like, I would think it's wrong if you're her boss and she's the secretary, right? Well, because at that point there's a massive element of implicit pressure.
Okay.
Right. It's very different than meeting a girl on a dating app where
I think he's I don't know his situation. I think he has a girlfriend, but I'm not sure. And Guamtech Zippy, I bet there is someone out there for you, buddy. There's always at least one person willing to put up with your flaws. If it exists, you deserve it. Hell yeah. And I got a new button just for that. So cheers to that.
Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly.
How do you like it? That's my new drinking sound. I like it. All right. Supporting each other. That's what I love.
you have no power over her. Right?
What about a woman of compromised mental fortitude?
No. Well, Jesus Christ. Again, it depends. Like, if I can tell, then no. But like, if you just have a learning disability, then yeah, well, whatever. I don't care. I don't care about that. Like, it's still it's good. I like it. I don't care. I didn't think about that, but you're right. But it's exactly. It was Bud Light. Oh well. But yeah, I don't know. Would you sleep with a girl who was of compromised mental fortitude?
Like a crazy girl? Yeah. Well, I mean, that depends how crazy. But if a girl's like really crazy, then yeah, I do think that would be wrong, regardless of her age. Doesn't matter if she's 18 or fucking 35. I think if a girl is mentally unstable, then that's the same thing as her being drunk. She's mentally impaired, right?
So now are we talking about somebody who has a personality disorder? Or are we talking about somebody who is developmentally, not there? Because exactly. If we're just talking about the crazy hot scale, and she's just wild crazy, then that's fine. If you're unstable and you don't got your shit together, you're still a grown ass person. Again, Grace is taking the position that, well, even despite the fact that she's an adult who has all the rights of every other man, it's your responsibility to make sure she doesn't fuck up her life. And I just don't agree with that.
I don't see those as like different. So I wouldn't fuck a drunk girl, nor would I fuck a girl who's like, you know, like mentally, like really mentally impaired. Like you.
Well, even there I find difference, because I wouldn't fuck a drunk girl just because of the way society has turned that into a form of RP. That like, I'm just trying to stay away from that. But I think if I'm drunk and you're drunk, then and we consent, then you know, in the same way you consent to getting behind the wheel, and they're going to charge you for it if you get caught, if you crash or something. Then why would sex be any different? Guamtech says we're talking about women. Is there really a difference?
You could tell she's like, maybe she got dumped like yesterday and she's like bawling her eyes out, she's crying, and she's just like, yeah, like probably in that situation it's better to chill out and like at the very least give her a few weeks and then, you know, re-engage with her back then rather than fuck her that night.
See, I actually think that you agree with me. I just think you're drawing the line at a different place. I think fundamentally you agree.
Maybe, but you're not very good. I mean, at least in this conversation. Again, I've watched this channel, and he is very good at explaining what he means, but just not in this conversation. I don't understand why.
With me, because based on your answer of the impaired judgment from being drunk or mental, like mental fortitude or whatever it might be, you agree that if someone isn't really capable of making the right decision,
again, that wasn't what we were talking about. Capable of making the right decision. Are you saying that somebody who is depressed is not capable of consenting to sex? Are you saying that somebody who has anxiety is incapable of making the right decision? I certainly wouldn't. So we're mincing words here. We're muddying the waters, and it's causing the conversation to kind of be flat, and it's also preventing them from moving on through how their different ideologies affect other things, because they're getting stuck on this one thing by using messy words. You have to be deliberate with not only your particular words, but with your thinking. What is it that you are trying to extract from this conversation? Or what is it that you're trying to understand from this conversation? He's saying, I think you agree with me. Well, we would know if you had said what your position is. You're asking a lot of questions, which is good, but we don't know what you're talking about.
then it's immoral to take advantage of that situation. It's just for you, you're drawing the line at an obvious mental impairment or somebody who is impaired under the influence of a substance. Whereas what I'm saying is that an 18-year-old girl is not the same as a 33-year-old girl. I think you're 33. And so
there we go. He's 33. So 33 and 18. That's
diminished mental capacity she has to be able to judge whether or not this is a good idea or in her best.
No, that's not the reason. The reason is because it's not because of her diminished mental capability. It's because of a difference in life experience and the understanding of, maybe you're not her boss, but the power dynamic is still there. It's still that you're an older guy and you've got cool stuff and you can pay for stuff, and she's just out of high school. That's what makes it weird. Not the fact that she can't make decisions. Once you're an adult, you're an adult.
Best interest, in my mind, makes what you're doing not like legally like put you in jail or anything like that, but definitely morally sketchy. Whereas the clean line that you seem to draw around it says like, no, it's completely fine. I think is a cop out because you're not taking into account the fact that she's not as equipped as a woman who's much older to be able to make those decisions.
Okay, so then what is the alternative? What is the alternative? What is the line in the sand that should be drawn? You're not providing anything. You're just grilling him and telling him he's wrong, and then moving on to something else. Zippy says 18 to 29 are all diminished mental capacity, both genders, really. I mean, I think that goes a little bit wider than that. I think everybody's just fucking dumb.
And so for me, it's a sliding scale.
Yeah, but I would say like it's a spectrum, right? So a girl who's 18 is not as equipped as a girl who's 20. A girl who's 20 is not as equipped as a girl who's 22, and so on. So where do you draw the line? Like where would you draw?
There you go.
That's completely fine. I don't have a problem with that.
That was a question. That was a question. Where do you draw the line?
But it seems like now I've kind of got you thinking like I am, which is a spectrum, which is that you sleeping with a 24-year-old is much more morally okay than you sleeping with a 22-year-old, which is better than a 20-year-old, which is better than an 18-year-old. And you would kind of agree with that?
Um,
Oh, he didn't like that. Yeah, DiCaprio got it set. 23 to 25. That is peak years. So he said, I think it's great if you can take responsibility for others and do right by them, but that's damn rare. Yeah, and it's just also, it's not your responsibility. It's not your moral obligation in terms of speaking philosophically. There's things that you can and should do for people, but that you are not morally obligated to do. That, you know, that you're a good person if you do it, but you're not a bad person if you don't do it. And it's just, he's just taking a very, even when he said, now it seems like you're talking more about my thing about it being a spectrum. Playing with Fire was the one who brought up the spectrum. So what are you talking about? Like, where do you go? I'm looking for his hands.
When you spectrum, I don't.
2 was 18 is not as a
Yeah,
it's completely fine. I think as a cop out because you're not taking into account the fact that she's not as equipped as a woman who's much older to be able to make those decisions. And so for me, it's a sliding scale.
Yeah, but I would say like it's a spectrum, right? So a girl who's
So okay, he did say he did say sliding scale first, but because Alex is bringing up the spectrum thing, it sounds like he didn't really understand that they're saying the same thing. And so he is already at that place of saying it's a spectrum. And then Grace says, oh, well, now I've got you on my side, as if he made any movement. Like, no. Zippy says, indifference is not immoral. You can't save everyone. You can only help so much. Indeed. Indeed. But at the same time, you want to do as much as you possibly can. You just don't want to get bogged down in the fact that you can't save the entire world.
18 is not as equipped as a girl who's 20. A girl who's 20 is not as equipped as a girl who
says.
Fine, I don't have a problem with that, but it seems like now I've kind of got you thinking.
I've got you thinking
like I am, which is a spectrum, which is that you sleeping with a 24-year-old is much more morally okay than you sleeping with a 22-year-old, which is better than a 20-year-old, which is better than an 18-year-old. And you would kind of agree with that?
Nope. Because that's just too simplistic. That's not really what
I'm fascinated at your reluctance. Like, what scares you about agreeing to this? Like,
because you're inherently saying that the age is the deciding factor. So what about a 23-year-old who is mature for her age versus a 30-year-old who has some sort of personality disorder? That's that's what would scare me. It's just simplifying it and putting a stamp on, yep, 18 is worse than 23, and as long as she's at this age, then she's fine. That's where I would be hesitant to answer. And again, I would use the word hesitant, not scared. What scares you? Nothing scares me. I'm just thinking about the question because it's a bad question.
No, it's not. I'm just actually thinking because I want to give you an honest answer. Because
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Because I told you.
Unwanted Foe said he keeps changing spectrum and sliding scale. They're different things. Well, I think originally he said sliding scale. And then, like you are saying, they're different things. So then PWF said it's a spectrum and specifically said 18 is better, or 18 is, and then 20, 22, 20, so on and so forth. And so then I think Grace changed what he was saying to go along with the spectrum thing that PWF brought up. That's what I think is happening. But then again, it's like, well, what scares you? You're so scared. That's antagonistic language. And why? Why?
This is a good question.
It's not a good question. The reason it's not a good question is because you've simplified it. Do you agree that sleeping as a 33-year-old man sleeping with an 18-year-old is worse than sleeping with a 25-year-old? Not necessarily.
In some ways, probably yes. Like in terms of risk, what's the real issue with her being 18? Right?
There you go.
It's the risk of her making a decision that she's going to regret. Right? That's essentially, or something that's going to be harmful to her. That's really what it comes down to, right? That's the reason why you don't have sex with drunk girls and stuff like that. So is that risk higher than if she was 25? Well, yes. I think
Exactly.
probably that risk would be higher. So by that, kind of standard, then yes, it would be, I guess, morally inferior to do that. But I think at the same time, like we as a society have like come to understanding that 18, you become an adult, you can join the army, you can smoke cigarettes. It's like, okay, well, if
19 in Jersey.
this girl can join the army and fight for her life, it's like she can probably make up her own mind when it comes to, sleeping partners. But yeah, again, sure, the risk is lower.
And again, now he, without saying anything, he's just like, what are you laughing at? If I was PWF, I'd be fucking pissed at this point. Like, what are we talking about, dude? What is it that you're trying to get at? What is so wrong with what I'm saying? And what would you say instead? Why am I just sitting in the hot seat?
Or the risk is higher that she might make a mistake that she regrets.
I find that fascinating from someone who's identifying as a libertarian. I'm guessing you don't really like the government, like imposing its morality on people, and yet you defaulted to what's legal. No, sorry, I misunderstood you.
No, I don't. I'm a libertarian.
Okay, but then you've defaulted to what the government has made legal to make your moral case then. Because she's 18, it's okay because the government says so.
Well, it's because
I don't like government overreach. Therefore,
What?
it's because we, as a society, it's not even just the government, society, we have come to the idea that when you're 18, at least in America, you're an adult, right?
exactly. It's the law became what was culturally acceptable, not the other way around. They didn't make the law 18 and then we decided that 18 was a good place to make that line and to distinguish from child to adult. It was okay. 18, right about that spot when you're out of high school, you go off on your own. So, because you're off on your own, let's make the law to coincide with the societal value that once you graduate high school, you are an adult. I find it funny that you're going to the government.
Come on, man.
I want to foe. So he's implying all libertarians believe there shouldn't be an age of consent. It sounds like it. It sounds like it. This is why you gotta stay in your lane or be humble when you're not. He might know all about evolutionary psychology, but just because you hear the word libertarian doesn't mean you don't care about laws.
That's when you become an adult, all the rights of being an adult. So yeah, I guess the government is somewhat involved in that. Like if the government changed the law and said, hey, you have to be 19 before you can have sex, then, I would respect that, obviously, because I don't want to go to jail. Exactly. I just think that's kind of like...
Yeah, that's another, obviously, another obvious point about that is that, there's now that the law is there, I don't want to go to jail. So again, then the proper question for Grace to ask PWF now, if the law, or if there was no age of consent, how low would you go? Or even better, what if the age of consent was 14? Would you find it personally okay to sleep with a 14-year-old? And he likely would say no. And again, that comes back. So then why are you going to the government? I'm not going to the government. We as a society culturally decided that after you graduate high school, which is typically 18 years old, you need to go out on your own. And because of those things, you need to be considered an adult. Where's the confusion? Where's the confusion?
Involved in that. Like if the government changed the law and said, hey, you have to be 19 before you can have sex, then, I would respect that, obviously, because I don't want to go to jail. I just think that's kind of like what we as a society have adopted. Now, if you're going to make the argument that, hey, you're not really adult until you're like 21, that's a fair argument, right?
I say 25, but again, that's not really what we're talking about.
I'm sure you keep growing and evolving. I know for guys, they don't reach their mental maturity until their late 20s. So yeah, but again, I feel like, kind of to me, like the litmus test when the girl's 18, if she's sound mind, is good enough. And then I don't really think about it past then.
Yeah, sure. But it does sound like you're defaulting to what has society figured out. And I'm kind of pressuring you, supposed to be like, well, what do you personally feel? But it sounds like you're willing to take ownership of that. And I'm happy to leave that there, unless there's anything else you want to say about that one.
I would just say, like, they're kind of intertwined, right? Because what we feel is going to be definitely influenced by society
Exactly.
and in the countries that we live in, right? And culturally, right? Like our beliefs aren't like 100% ourselves. Like a big part of the reason you believe what you believe is the friends you've had, the books you've read, the influences you've had. Like it is certainly possible if you grew up in a totally different country with totally different community, you might be like the biggest fuckboy ever, right? Like we're all influenced by that. So, I think you can't like not acknowledge it. You can try to think for yourself and be like, wait, does this make sense? Like, like the government says you have to be 21 to drink. I look at that, I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like if you can fight in the army, you should be able to drink in the US at least. I know Australia is different.
Yeah, and so that's that's a good example that people always go to, is that you can die for your country, but you can't drink alcohol. And it's like, I think that if you're if that's why I think we should raise the age. But if we are making that determination that at 18 you are old enough to do this, then how is drinking something that wouldn't be considered in that category? And I'm not saying that we should lower the age of adulthood or the drinking age. I mean, I'm saying we should raise the age of adulthood.
But yeah, I mean, I do think they're very much intertwined, and you are influenced by the outside world.
Yep, sure. Can I ask, who is the woman Lil Dragon on your channel?
Lil Dragon.
Well,
What is going on there? Shout out to Stephanie Miller in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. What's gross? I'm gross? I'm not gross. Am I gross?
Dragon is a Ukrainian porn star. She is a friend of a friend of a friend. We did a few collabs together on my channel.
Okay, cool.
Is this him? Yeah, that's him.
Does she seem happy to you?
I don't know her that well. I've met her twice in my whole life.
This is whatever is going on in this video. Why is it on the internet? This is so cringe. This is so cringe. And Stephanie, you said this before that was up, but yeah, this is. I don't even necessarily think that PDA in general. It's just the over like what we're watching right here. We're just like, hey, I have to be this close to talk to you. I gotta be all over you. And it's like, why are you putting a camera on this? What is the purpose of what this original video? Yeah. And again, it may not necessarily be a weird line of questions if we understood what was in Grace's mind, what he was trying to get to, or where he is trying to get to. But I don't know that he really even has, if he really even knows that. He seems like he's just like throwing out questions to see what works. Oh, yeah. Sleeping with a 14-year-old is definitely gross. But that would have bred the conversation that it seemed like Alex was trying to have. That you're saying, oh, well, the age of adulthood is 18, and so because the government said, then you're okay. What if the government said 14? That's the next logical question. But logical questions don't seem to be very common here.
It's really, really hard for me to say. Our relationship, we just never really like bonded. We've never done a podcast like this. It's literally, our relationship is shooting like demonstration videos where it's just like all action, and then like making like pleasant small talk for 5 minutes and talking about travel, and that's it. So I really just don't know her well enough to say whether she's happy.
Okay, I think it was one of these things that is like, this is how you initiate touch, for like the betas, and it's still weird to watch, at least out of context. Maybe it would be a little bit less jarring in context, but yikes. So yeah, no, they do this. So this is a clip from his podcast, but this is on his channel. So I mean, maybe they did like a. Yeah, I don't know if they did like a video on both. Let's see. So for 2 hours, interviewing purposely. Oh, okay. What does he say here? It says I spoke to Alex from Playing with Fire for around 2 hours. In interviewing him, I purposely steered the conversation towards points of disagreement because opposing views are more engaging to watch than two people just agreeing with each other. Though our conversation got tense at points, on a personal level, I found Alex to be a great guy to chat with. There are lots of disagreements, but we have our full thing on Patreon. So this is only the half of it. But yeah, so he's hosting this and he's the guest. And that's I was just gonna say it seems like it's the Playing with Fire dude holding like a Q&A or an Ask Me Anything. That's the vibe that I'm getting. Very weird. Very, 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 very weird.
Minutes and talking about travel, and that's it. So I really just don't know her well enough to say whether she's happy, not happy. I don't know.
Okay, no, I can respect that. Here's an interesting thing is what I've noticed is that when you bring women onto your channel, they tend to be like porn stars, right? You know, like these are the women who you're kind of curious. I saw you react with a porn star as to like dating advice. And my first thought was, what does it matter what a porn star's reaction to this stuff is? Nobody wants to wife up a porn star. But then I think that that's my bias in that in my audience, I'm always trying to get guys into long-term relationships. Whereas for you, you're teaching guys how to seduce women. And so those kinds of women, it matters, I suppose, what they think, because if you don't think that there's a problem hooking up with hookup culture and you don't think that there's a problem with how many partners a woman has had, then there's no problem with trying to seduce a porn star. Like that's just as legitimate a choice as any other. Correct?
Yeah, I agree, Stephanie, that goodbye PDA at an airport is fine, even sweet. Two people getting it on in line at the theater is gross. Do I have a gross type sound? Gross. No, just a gross. Yeah, I like, you know, it's like within reason, moderation. Read the room. There's other people around. It's okay for you to hold hands. It's okay for you to I don't even mind, like, you know, like to use your example of you know, being online at the theater. I don't care if you're even just standing there hugging each other, you got your arm around her, even, you know, you got your arm around her in her butt pocket, whatever. But I don't like caressing and heavy petting and like leave that at home. Somebody goes on to say, and yeah, I don't know who this dude is, but I definitely think the law of consent is all that guides him, and that's disturbing. Well, see, I think I don't know him that well either, but I disagree. I think that I think that he is just, I don't know, because that's why we need that question. That's exactly why we need that question. If we had the question as to whether or not he would do it with a 14-year-old, and then you can ask for a 16-year-old, because there's like it or not, there are some 16-year-olds who can pass as 18. And in terms of, if we're talking about, you know, being attracted to children, that and straight up pedophilia, it's not that, because that specifically is relevant to like prepubescent. And so it's still gross, but we're not going to know now. We're not going to know now. And so I tend to think that, you know, it's the law of consent based off of society. That's kind of what I think. But again, thanks to Alexander Grace, we will never know. Zippy says adulthood needs to be around 25 these days. Let people prove they have solid mental capacity to the courts to gain adulthood for 17 plus, which varies by state. I'm not mad at that. Like, yeah, I mean, I think that's perfectly fine. I would even, and again, I would say adulthood 16. If you can be, if you can, what's the word? Emancipate yourself at 16. If you can drive at 16, I think that's a good place to say, like, not every 16-year-old, but 16 to 24, you can be considered an adult if you, I don't know what the litmus test would be, but we have that test. And once you just sit around at home and then turn 25 and it's automatic. Stephanie agrees. Says he doesn't know her well enough to know if she's happy or he doesn't care to know. I mean, if they're only doing like little short skits and stuff together, probably both. Probably both.
Correct.
Yeah, at the end of
So let's back that up a sec.
If you don't think that there's a problem hooking up with hookup culture, and you don't think that there's a problem with how many partners a woman has had, then there's no problem with trying to seduce a porn star. Like, that's just as legitimate a choice as any other. Correct?
Yeah, at the end of the day, a porn star's opinion is not any more important than a regular girl's opinion. But it just, if I say porn star in the title, I'm going to get a lot more views. And I do play the game to some extent. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
He's playing with fire, you might say. Unwatchfo said, nah, not down to 16. Lowering it at all would open the door that should never open. Well, 17 is already lower than 18. What are you talking about?
Like, say things I don't believe in, but I will, like, you know, if it goes along with what I already believe, I will use props, you know, use clickbaity titles. And yeah, the porn star, like, if I do that video
That's
with a
the
regular
game,
girl,
baby.
it's just the views will be like a fraction of that.
I mean, come on, man. You got how many? You got 200, almost 300,000 subscribers. You know how the game goes. You know how the game goes. Excuse me. Oh, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. There it is. Unwatchfo said, I disagree with the states that put 17 too. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Consistency. But what's the huge difference then between 17 and 18? Now it sounds like you're the one who's going based solely on the government's assessment. What's the why? I mean, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's the main reason I get like the porn stars on board. Also, porn stars are a bit more open to these types of collabs. Like a girl who has like a 9-to-5 job, something that's like a little bit more physical, like I did with the porn stars, like that could be a big career risk for her. Like, for example, my girlfriend.
Actually, it's half the difference between 14 and 16 because that's 2 years and 17, 18 is 1 year.
Who's helped me a million times in my videos, like with the physical stuff, she like is very apprehensive to do it because again, she has a corporate job, you know, if her boss finds that, you know, that could be bad for her work reputation. So in addition to those being more popularly viewed by guys, it's also that like porn stars are just gonna be more likely to engage in that kind of content versus a lot of regular girls. It's just it's a risk for them, you know, if they have careers.
I have no problem with that. And I give you full credit for your street interviews series, which everyone should check out because I think they're really, really good, where you are chatting to normal women. And I thought that it was a wonderful pushback against some of the stereotypes that you see in the manosphere about how all women are the same, where you were pointing out like, hey, look, these guys were friend zoned for a while and they still got together or whatever it might be. Like,
so if you know about this street interview content, then you know that he's not just talking to porn stars. So why are you even bringing up this false premise to begin with? This whole thing is really shady. I seriously, I haven't been, you know, I just did the community tab post about unsubscribing to channels, and like I was asking, are you more likely when you unsubscribe from a channel, is it more likely that they did something big that said, oh, I can't support that, and you unsubscribe? Or is it that you just kind of lose interest over time and then you're like, you know what, I haven't watched that channel in mad long. Let me just finally unsubscribe. And you know, for most people, they were saying the latter. And I'm the same way. And I just unsubscribed to this philosophy channel that I've been watching forever. And I started watching Alexander Grace way back in like the lockdown days. And I haven't really been watching him that much at all. Usually what he'll do, which is again another the YouTube game thing. What he usually does is take a video or a TikTok and he'll play it right at the beginning of his video and then kind of go into whatever. And so for a long time, I was just clicking on his video to watch the TikTok or to watch the video that he was showing. And then as soon as it was over, I would go to the next thing. If he was smart, he would, you know, open up, kind of talk about what he's going to talk about, and then show the video. But after this, I am ready to unsubscribe from Alexander Grace. Stephanie Miller says, what?
What?
No more important than a regular girl's opinion? Did he say that? I don't like him. That sounds like you're sex worker shaming. Are you sex worker shaming, Stephanie? I thought we're all 10s. What happened to that? No, I'm with you though. But I mean, in terms of The reason that it's also that PWF he didn't really address is that, you know, a porn star is going to be the like boss level in terms of you impressing that girl, because she just has like so much sexual stuff in her life that you know, number one, it's going to be skewed, and number two, she's going to have a harder time pair bonding. And so I think the opinions of the super cold, you know, cold-hearted porn star bitch, I think that is just as important as a different perspective, because there's plenty of women who are whores who just don't film it. So especially because he's balancing it out with the street interviews, that whole line of questioning was, as I want to post, said, weird.
Like interviewing regular women. I really, really enjoyed that series. So props to you for that. But the
I think Grace just doesn't like porn stars. I think that's his thing.
little dragon video that I watched, I found fascinating at the end. And I again, this is not at all intended as a criticism. I'm just genuinely fascinated in your value system as to how this has come about. But you were like, all right, hit that like button and show Lil Dragon what a dirty little slut she is.
All right, hopefully.
Before we dive into that, I want to pose a good question here. Would you rather marry a P-Hub star or a bad bitch? I think I would rather marry a bad bitch, because I feel like I would be able to maintain my, like, you know, maintain frame, as they say it. And I don't think that because again, it really depends. It really depends. Because now I'm thinking about it. Because you can, just because she is a P-Hub star doesn't mean she's not a bad bitch. So you could, that's what I was thinking at first, is that you can get a P-Hub star that is a bad bitch. And then you got the worst of both worlds. And at least then you just got to work on her behavior. You don't got to worry about her bullshit out there. But I'm thinking, like, I'm sure there's porn stars who are going to be more peaceful if you are in a relationship with them. I mean, obviously the answer is neither. But if I had to choose, nah, I'm still going with the bad bitch. As bad as she might be, I'm badder, you know what I mean? Context just wants a picture. No, I don't want to fix anybody. I know, fix your own shit and then come and talk to me. I want to post it. I think a bad bitch would be more likely to ruin your life. Just my opinion. It's well, okay. So why? Why do you think she'd be more likely to ruin your life than a P-Hub star? What's the handyman? Good with his hands. Let's go. Definitely good with my hands. You know, definitely good with my fingers. You know, don't act like women don't. That's not the first thing they think of when they see that I could do that. They know. Sammy says, no, it sounds like he doesn't value any girl's opinion. Like, a girl is a girl. Possibly. So that, you mean like all women are just as bad as P-Hub stars? Him saying that makes sense. I don't know enough about him. It doesn't sound like that to me, but maybe. All right, let's see what's good with Dirty Little Dragon.
You guys found this video valuable, and show Lil Dragon she's a good, dirty little slut by smashing the like button.
And like, she kind of giggles.
That sounds like just a joke. That sounds like just ha. No? So Amanda posted, I think a bad bitch would be more likely to ruin your life than a P-Hub star. After the original question, I asked why. And he says, it's the attitude, with little to offer and back it up. Plus, they'll likely come with problems that P-Hub stars already have too. Well, that's kind of, I mean, I think if that's the case, if you're going to have the problems either way, then again, at least I would rather have the problems without her, number one, being ran through, and number two, her body and her everything being out there. If I have to choose, and they're going to be the same attitude anyway, then I'm going with the bad bitch. So I think a better hypothetical, would you rather be with a peaceful P-Hub star or a bad bitch? then I would choose the P-Hub star, because as much as I obviously don't want that, peace in the home is top priority. Libby says he does have that preacher man vibe of all women bad. I don't know. I haven't really heard that, guys. I mean, to each their own, but I haven't really heard that. One text said the real question: would you rather date a bad bitch, a P-Hub star, or a feminist? I would rather try to juggle a bad bitch and a P-Hub star and then date a feminist. I mean, just no. I'd rather end myself than date a feminist. So he said, if she's a bad bitch, she's gonna be ran through, brother. I hate to tell you. So again, if that's what we're saying, then I'm definitely going with the P-Hub star, because then one's been ran, or they're both ran through. They both have bad attitudes, but one's peaceful. That's if we have to choose, that's where she ekes it out.
Allie Bun, show Little Dragon that she's a good, dirty little slut by smashing the like button.
And like she kind of giggled and you had a laugh. And I was curious, like, what is the source of the humor with that? Like, why did you say that about her?
It's called satire. The idea, or irony, the fact that she's not a dirty little whore, or the fact that we are addressing that you're not supposed to say she's a dirty little whore, but she actually is a whore that is okay with being a whore. So you can say it. You know how it's never funny when you have to explain a joke? I want to said, what kind of feminist? The type that just says they are, or the type that goes out as an activist? I'm definitely if it's between these two, then definitely not the activist. Again, before an activist, I'm doing that. I think most women probably consider themselves feminists, but I don't consider that being feminist. I only consider if you have it in your profile and you have purple hair and you have hair in your armpits and you're talking about the patriarchy, that's a feminist to me. Not just, whatever. Shout out to Lefty Lucy. Welcome to the party. So does your wife to be is your to-be wife a P-Hub star or a feminist or a bad bitch? Yeah, none of the above. None of the above. I will keep my short ass alone if those are the only options. Hell no. Hell no. Oh, hey. But welcome to the party, Lefty Lucy.
Oh, that was all planned out. It's just humor. It's just throwing a joke in there. It's like acting like that. All like that line. I'm not gonna actually, say that without checking with her first.
Okay.
We thought it would be funny. Way 10.
Wait, did he think that was just like okay? He didn't realize it was a joke. Like, bro, what? To think that I listen to this guy for any opinions about anything, like he just seems like ditzy. Sammy says, yeah, like the only value he has in them, and if they are down for what he wants. Sorry, I've dated my share of jerks and can usually spot one. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, I don't know the other way. I'm just personally not getting that vibe
off that video. That's all. I have a pretty dark sense of humor, so yeah.
Okay, I can appreciate that. I think I have watched a lot of content from ex-porn actresses, trafficking victims, prostitutes, and things like that. And so many of these girls are coming into the sex worker industry from really dark backgrounds. And they're desperate to get out deep down, but it's covered under all of these layers of like feminism and this is empowering and things like that. I'm curious if your morality of like, well, she consents to it includes like these women like Lil Dragon and that other porn star lady that I saw that you're like, no, this is what they're choosing. It's not my place to say that what they're doing isn't a good idea.
Exactly. It's not your place. And I don't think those women would even appreciate you taking that place and be like, hey, you should really fix your life. And they'd be like, fuck off, I'm doing this, I'm getting the bag. You don't know, you got a little dick. That's the reception you get. So even if he tried, what is it that you think would happen? That you think would happen by going to a P-Hub star and saying what? Saying what?
Because give you a point of contrast for you to kind of springboard off of. I wouldn't feel comfortable promoting or increasing somebody's career like in that industry because I'm like, they're walking down a bad path. That's like giving a drug addict more drugs, preventing them from getting help. Do you not see it that way?
So I understand what you're saying, and I do think for some girls it's a bad path. I think there's like two categories of like female porn stars.
Nah, you got Lefty Lucy in the building. I think Haley, excuse me, Harley was here before. We got few. Don't worry.
Some that like do come from a dark place and it's like not good for their mental health, and some that just legitimately love to get fucked, and like this is what makes them happy. Like Riley Reid, Lisa Ann, would both be girls who are in that category.
No chance. Riley Reid had an extremely traumatic upbringing. She doesn't speak to her mother. She's actually one girl I know quite a lot about, as because I did a video on her like 4 years ago. She's a really good example of somebody who's in the sex worker industry because of the trauma she experienced as a child.
She might have had trauma, but if you watch her interviews, even now that she's married, she still talks about it very fondly. She's like, yeah, I'm happy I did this. Like, this is what allowed me to have
I hate to burst your bubble, Alex, but you know,
yeah, I'm with Grace on this one. That that's probably bullshit that she enjoyed it. No. I mean, I'm sure she enjoyed it, but at this point in time, I'm almost certain that she's not happy about that, and she's just saying it to save face.
Women can lie. A lot of women don't have self-awareness. You know, the fact that she says that is not as ironclad a defense as you might think.
Well, I mean, it's like, okay, but like neither one of us knows her personally. I'm just taking what she says at face value. I don't really have any reason.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't take what porn stars say at face value. You know? Yeah, exactly. Seen her crying in several interviews. Not buying it. Not buying it.
To doubt her. You know, if I knew her personally and I knew that's like not how she felt, then sure. But
even if she was like it was true, even if she was dead ass serious and she genuinely appreciated the fact that she'd gone through that, that's the exception. Look at Mia Khalifa. Look what happened to Adam 22 with Lena the Plug. I mean, yikes.
You know, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like she's pretty porn positive, and I've seen other girls who are like that.
Savage Lucy.
In terms of the Little Dragon, yeah, again, I see she's an adult. She was doing porn way before I came along. She's gonna be doing porn way after.
Yeah, and that would be a very, very, very different thing as well. Like if we are talking about him bringing somebody in saying, "Oh, you should try this," that's a very different thing than, "Hey, you do this, and I'm going to talk to you because it'll get me views on my channel." That's a very, 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 very different thing. Wanted Foe said Adam 22 chose the cuck life. Yeah. And just like so many other men who think that, oh, it's just about insecurity or whatever. And then they, let one pass the goalie. It's like, I really, really wish I didn't do that. And I mean, he's his own P-Hub star. It's not the same, brother. It is not the same.
If anything, I'm not even like pushing her to porn, so I'm not doing porn with her. I'm doing content with her. So if anything, potentially, maybe this will help her if there is a help feature, so as to speak, because she can realize she can do other types of content besides getting fucked. But yeah, I don't see myself as contributing or not contributing. It's just like it's just a collab.
Zippy says, I tend to split the middle and infer things, but I do not trust what most people say, as you shouldn't. Stay skeptical. Also, I take things at face value. Is basic indifference, a neutral stance. I disagree with that. Like, I tell you guys I'm a dog trainer. You have to take that at face value. You have no proof that I'm a dog trainer. I tell you that, there's a bunch of things. And you take the things that I say at face value. That's not a neutral stand. That's not indifference. It's just you have a reason to take what I say at face value because the things that I've said have been able to be taken at face value. They've held true. And if they're not, then, like I said, if Kamiko is, I doubt she's still, she's still here. But if Kamiko comes back with an article that says, nope, you're wrong. Pound for pound, alcohol is worse than heroin. then I'll say, hey, look, I was wrong. Kamiko was right. But I do not believe that that is the case. And it's been years since I read about this, but it was independent studies that were leading up to whether or not Portugal was going to not only legalize all drugs, but then have these centers to where people could go and shoot up, and they would get clean heroin, clean needles, and make sure they have information about addiction and stuff like that. So that's what I read. And again, what happened? What happened? Source? Like, I don't know. I read it a while ago. I didn't say that I had a source. I'm just giving you my what I know. Source? Maybe I'm wrong. Do you have a source? Okay, so we're just source. Where's your source? Where's your source? My source is my source, and your source is your source. That's not a conversation. That's trying to win an argument. And where did that go? Nowhere. Maybe Kamiko thinks I was bullshitting when I said that if they come back with an article, that I would derail the show to talk about that. But it's not derailing the show, because this entire platform is about telling the truth and communicating. And so if I said something that was wrong, then I want to immediately and directly address it. And so for that reason, because I've shown you that, you have reason to take what I say at face value. Yeah, one past the goal. He does a scooter. I've never known how. Vuvuzela. I know it's the. I don't know how to say it. Unwanted foe said Morty has trained Lutch, not the other way around, and that is a fact. Indeed, it is. Unfortunately, I was not a dog trainer when I got him, and he did actually train me. Stephanie Miller says, I don't believe any woman chooses this career, and so I don't believe anyone chooses this as a career. And of course, he takes them at face value. If he looked any deeper, it would ruin the date for him. Okay, fair enough. That's a very good point. Guam says, I don't like the implication this guy is making about the P stars he has on. He knows what kind of audience he's catering to, and that he'll get more views with a P star. I don't like the implication this guy's making the P stars. So I don't know what you mean. He could easily have a normal girl to do that content, but he knows using P stars for views and low key promoting it. Yeah, but I mean, I'd ask you guys for money because for my dog. Like that's YouTube, guys. That's the name of the game. That's the name of the game. Unfortunately, like I said, I wish I could just sit here and, YouTube would pay me and I never would have to even bother you guys with anything having to do with money. But that's not the way it works. And so if you're just sitting with a random girl and she's not that attractive and she's not dressed scantily, and that's not going to do as well. This is a job. They do the same thing in movies and TV shows, but Zippy says, so you either believe what they say, doubt what they say, or take them at face value based on what they say. Face value is a more cumulative thing, but I may be try-harding categories. I think so. Stephanie Miller said, alcohol is not worse than heroin. I think it's worse than weed. So the specific context was that the damage that it does to your body is pound for pound. If you have the exact same amount of heroin and you have the exact same amount of alcohol, and again, anybody is very open to prove me wrong about this. But from what I remember of what I read years ago, which is why I'm saying fact check me, when they were looking to open these places, they were looking at the actual effects of the body on the body from one dose and all that stuff. And so the dose itself is not what makes heroin so dangerous. It's the level of addiction, the fact that you're using dirty needles, the fact that you're sharing needles, the fact that you're, it changes your brain chemistry to the point where you think it a good idea to sell your house so you can get a brick of black tar heroin and share, you use a shared needle with hepatitis on it. That's the problem with heroin, not the fact that it's going to destroy your liver in comparison to alcohol. And I mean, we all know that it's much harder on the body to get off of alcohol than heroin. They're both terrible, but you're not going to die from heroin withdrawal. But plenty of people have died from alcohol withdrawal. Quantac said he's acting like he isn't doing that. That's the problem I have with it. I mean, he straight up said that's what he's doing. How is he saying? He specifically said, well, I use that in my thumbnails and, I put it in the title so I get more views. So how is he acting like he isn't doing that? Yep. 100 said, need a gif of those seagulls from Finding Nemo. Source. That's a good one. That is a good one. I think we might have the comment of the night. All right. Comment of the night, Unwanted Foe. Thank you, sir.
Like, it's almost like, let's say I had like a massive fundamental disagreement with you. We have some disagreements, but I don't think we have massive disagreements. But let's say you were like a hardcore black pillar who had like what I thought was a toxic message, right? Like me having conversation with you.
Which ironically, it sounds like Grace thinks PWF is a black pillar who has a toxic message.
In some ways could be viewed as me contributing, but again, I don't see it as that way. It's like, hey, we have different ideas. We decided to come together, do a collab. And that's kind of how I see the little dragon thing. It's like, we came together to do a collab, both adults, I didn't cause her to get into porn. I do think it gets dicey if you like doing the Andrew Tate thing, or at least what he was doing, where you're like actually getting girls who've never done porn to do porn. Especially girls who don't want to do porn, like kind of more like conservative girls. That I will agree with you is like ethically not good. But yeah, little dragon thing I view as differently because it's just like she's already doing porn. We're not doing porn together, just a collab.
I agree.
I really appreciate your honesty and forthrightness in saying this, because I'm getting so much clarity on, with as much that we might have in common, where our differences lie, which is, and you pointed out quite well that you said that morality was subjective, and I think that morality is objective. It's nuanced, not that simple, but it gets to the heart of the matter in that my understanding about human beings is that we're not a blank slate. I'm a big evolutionary psychology guy. And so I make the argument that being a porn actress is objectively a destructive choice. It's not good.
Right, but destructive does not necessarily mean immoral. If you take a wrecking ball to a building, that's destructive, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's immoral. If people are in the building, it's immoral. If you're not supposed to knock it down, it's immoral. But destructive and immoral are two different things. Again, smuggling things in. Zippy says alcohol is a slow addiction, which can more harshly permeate you, since it takes longer to build muscle and mental memory, where life is unbearable without it. All drugs and sugar are scary. Yes, indeed. That's why you got to be, I say it all the time, but I think the only reason that I am the only one of my friends who I would do drugs with, and we were into, opiate, the opioid pills. I'm the only one who didn't eventually graduate to heroin. I did try it after Akon died, but it was, I was just like, I could see where this is going, and I didn't shoot it up. I snorted it. But all of my other friends ended up being dope heads, and I think most of them were snorting it, but some also went intravenously, and it was because I purposely and consciously was aware that I'm flirting with the devil, and it's I'm sorry if you've heard the story before, but there's a scene from the first Saw movie that for whatever reason stuck with me. I saw that as a kid, and then I was straight edge in high school, and then I went to college, and college happens. So I remember the first time I was doing a Xanax. It was a tiny little peach. I think it was 0.25 milligrams, which is like half of one of the blocks of an actual Xanax bar. And I just, I had this thought of this scene. Spoilers for the first Saw movie that came out in like 2000. But I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with the movie. It's like, mind games, and you got to do stuff to get out of a dire situation. And so there's the two people in the room, and they have their legs cuffed to whatever. And the guy there's one doctor and there's one dumber guy. And the doctor guy is talking about Jigsaw, the guy who did the whole game, and he's thinking about like, oh, he wants us to do this. That clock is new. And the other guy is like, what's going on? It sounds like you really like this guy that's done this to us. And the doctor says, in order to beat a disease, you have to understand what a monster it can be. I don't know if that's the exact quote, but it's something along those lines. And I'm about to take this drug, and that line comes to me. That scene comes to me. And so all the while, for about 5 years, I'm thinking, what I would do is I would do, 3 to 4 day benders and then 3 to 4 days of letting it get out of my system, which is huge. Instead of having a buildup of 6 months of every single day I'm doing this, I'm breaking it up, which again is not ideal, but I understood the monster I was dealing with. And that allowed me that once I, I thought it would allow me to prevent myself from going too far down the road. But as much as you can understand, you do not understand what drugs can do to you. And so it did go too far. But the main reason I stopped was money. I was running out of money, not because I was like ruining my life or whatever. I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I'm at a crossroads. I'm running out of money. My addiction is continuing. So either I'm committing to be this drug addict, or I have to make a change in my life. And then I did. And the only reason that I was able to make that decision was because I had respected the monster from the beginning. We got that one. Stephanie says, I don't know if that can be comparable. I have mixed feelings about those places, but yes, it would be safer if you can get it legally. Definitely. That's true. Alcohol withdrawal can kill you. Heroin withdrawal makes you wish it would. Oh yeah. In that context, then yeah, I would say alcohol is worse. I can see that. See, that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is we have the conversation and we meet middle ground. Source. That gets us nowhere. Unless you already have a source that says, actually, you're wrong. In which case, please let me know. Zippy the Strange says, I wonder if cocaine was legal, it would replace much of meth and heroin, but I think it's too much of a stimulant than a high. Well, 100% agreed that it's too much of a stimulant than a high, but that's just me. I hate the feeling of being on cocaine. As as I was talking about, I am a downer guy. I like my weed. I like my not anymore, but I like my pills and like Xanax and painkillers. So I don't use those anymore, but I still smoke because I'm naturally, my mind is just I have anxiety, so I always wanted to slow it down. But I like the doing of drugs, so I'll just I'm not gonna seek it out. But if you got some coke, I'm taking some lines. What's good? Let's party. But you're exactly right that it definitely would replace meth and crack if it was legal. Maybe not crack because of the prices, but not heroin because it's just a very different thing. But granted that it doesn't have that much of a high. I think if it was legal, then that would cause the prices to go down. Then very possibly. Very possibly. Lefty Lucy says pharma drugs have got to be the worst for your health. Yep. Because, yeah. Yeah, they're just that strong that they do just so much damage to your liver, to your intestines, to your brain chemistry, all that kind of stuff. So it says it's the only thing I wasn't able to walk away from. Yep, it is tough. Zippy says it's government approved, so it must be good for you. Not quite. He says, I know a lot more pharma drug addicts than alcoholics or smackheads. They think pharma drugs are safe because they come from doctors. Well, they're safer. They're absolutely safer. Absolutely safer if you're getting them from the pharmacy. The problem is that with the drugs is that, number one, it's expensive, and number two, they're very, they watch this stuff very closely. So it's hard to find somebody with a script who doesn't need it. It's hard to get a script in the first place if you do need it. So to find somebody who just has a script coming in every month, they're not using any of it. It's just hard to find. But even still, You see a lot of them. And so when you get them from the pharmacy, absolutely they're safer than if you're getting street drugs, because you don't know what's in the street drugs. Whereas, I mean, as shady as the FDA is, not quite as shady as Pookie from the block. You know what I mean? Camcast, welcome to the party. So weed is cool. Coke is scary to me because I'm a recluse to that community. I always say, if you've never done Coke, don't do it. It is so not worth it. It's expensive. The high just feels like drinking too much coffee and also wanting more Coke. That's what you feel like. Drink a bunch of coffee, and then you just want it's just don't do it. Don't do it. Steffi says lack of money is definitely hard on a habit. Thankfully, right? Thankfully, despite the fact that I come from a family that isn't poor, I definitely I definitely did take some liberties with reasons why I needed money from mom and dad when I was in college. But it's a good thing that I couldn't just I didn't just have a trust fund, or I didn't have endless money, because where would I be? I haven't seen Coke in years. And again, it's something like, every once in a while, you're doing it with people who, it definitely, makes you chat and talk a lot. So it can be fun. It's just not worth it if you don't, if you haven't done it and you don't know what you're missing. You don't need to. Zippy says, well, coca leaves are not hard to grow or boil into a powder, but basic stimulants could get most by, with fringe trying harder and not stopping. The oddities in averages. Find it funny, legalized weed is randomly a mess from the red tape that's created to monopolize it. Yep. Wanted foe. So you be in Hunter Biden's laptop, maybe. Zippy says, have a trust fund, run a 501c3 scam. I mean, nonprofit, make them millions. Well, that's what Black Lives Matter did, right? All right, where were we here? Where were we?
In that my understanding about human beings is that we're not a blank slate. I'm a big evolutionary psychology guy. And so I make the argument that being a porn actress is objectively a destructive choice. It's not good for a woman to do that. And so the fact that there are women in there who, as part of their coping mechanism, are telling themselves that they had fun, or even after they get out, they're like, no, but it was fun while I did it, and things like that. I don't find that remotely convincing, because I guess I've done enough of my own personal research, books, podcasts, whatever, about the underlying psychology, the women who get drawn into these industries, that I'm like, no, obviously it's not good. I also understand the instincts that every woman is born, where she's trying to protect her chastity for the sake of, being able to appeal to a lot of men, to guarantee them paternity certainty.
Well, that used to be the case. But again, what do, he's talking about how much he's learned, which makes sense because he hasn't really said anything, and PWF has been talking the whole time. But what do we know about what Grace thinks besides P-Hub bad? And women naturally want to protect their chastity. What does he think? We don't know. He hasn't said anything.
That whole kettle of fish. And so I'm a lot more comfortable saying, all right, it doesn't really matter what you say. I'd be quite happy to sit down with Riley Reid and really drill down into it. But I would almost feel cruel to do that, because if she's coping at the moment by telling herself these lies, it feels mean to really push deep into that, to the point where she's like crying and admitting how actually miserable it was.
But again, that is in itself infantilizing. If you're saying I'm willing to talk to understand, but it's I would be afraid that she couldn't handle it, let her make that decision. It's very confusing. Lefty Lucy says the poor farmers who farm the coke leaves chew them for stimulation while bringing in the crop. They don't mess with coke in its refined form and live long and healthy lives. Well, yeah, with the leaves, that's barely. Again, that's another thing with cocaine is not necessarily that bad for your body. It speeds up your heart. It ruins your, the places in your nose. Again, don't do it. But I'm just saying, in terms of something like alcohol or fentanyl or something like that, these are things that will literally eat away at your body. I mean, again, aside from your septum, it's not going to eat away at your body. You know, we said women want to protect their chastity or have fun. Definitely the latter. Definitely the latter. Also, drill down on Riley Reid. Good catch. Good catch.
I feel like she has something of a right to be able to come to that on her own terms. However, I do have a problem with somebody like that who is then promoting that lifestyle, pretending like it's empowering because of the damage they're doing to impressionable young girls who
Yeah, exactly, Lucy. It's the crap they cut it with that does more harm.
are not being adequately educated about just how much damage they're doing to their future prospects and to their own psyche.
Yeah, so the disagreement we would have is that I would say that for some girls, it is definitely detrimental. And for some girls, it doesn't seem to be detrimental at all. Just like, going back to the army example, for some people fighting in the army and seeing combat is very detrimental. They get PTSD. It destroys their life.
There you go.
For some people, like I know ex-soldiers and Marines, totally fine. It was actually a positive experience. They became more disciplined. They became more, more focused. So it seems like really just like people.
Great example. Great example. Probably the closest example that we could get. Because the men in porn, it's not the same thing. And there is no exact equivalent. But putting your body on the line for possible lifelong consequences. Men do that all the time. Police, military, that's the name of the game. So where is he on men shouldn't join the military because it could, lead to this, that, or the other. It could lead to PTSD. It could lead to loss of limbs. It could lead to all of these things. And it's like, as much as I don't necessarily find this as an excuse is to say like, oh, well, now I'll date you. But sometimes like Mitch is hard up and she needs some money. I can't promise that if I had sexual marketplace value like that I wouldn't use it. Probably not, but I don't know. I've never been in that position. Hey, shout out to M169. Welcome to the party. Good to see ya. See, Stephanie, we got ladies in here. Welcome. Lucy says it's cut with it's cut with pharma junk like baby teething powder. Yeah, well, we used to just use straight up baby powder. And so I had roommates who would sell this stuff. And so I've seen one time a pile, like if the comment is a table, I see a pile of Coke like that big. It was just a mound. And so he would move the mound over here and then pour out about a third of that volume of baby powder and then just mix it up. It's called cutting it up. But yeah, and that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. It could be cut with meth. It could be cut with fentanyl. It could be cut with whatever. Where are we? Zippy says, and from what I understand, the chemicals used to FDA approved stuff is what's destroying the noses. Is that true? I always figured it was just the contact of having having a little powder being thrust into a canal that was not meant for that. Closest to the source, natural form tends to be the safest. Yeah, and I mean, again, it is certainly if not saying you should, but if you are going to do drugs and you can get them from a pharmacy, it is way safer than getting them on the street. Am I saying that just because you get it on the street that you're going to die? No, but maybe. So take that for what you will, and that is certainly not medical advice. Zippy the Strange said, could his argument be because they are damaged from the start, the sex work just makes the damage worse? Sure. But where is the morality conversation? Why were so many of his questions focused on morality if we're just talking about practical reality? If we're talking about the practical reality that it is likely to lead to this, that, the pair bonding, all the things that we've been talking about, then that's a perfectly fine position to have. But you're smuggling in morality, and it just, I mean, you could make the argument for it, but you're not making the argument for it. Yeah, the fact that it gets dry, and then especially I would, whenever I'm doing anything that you put up there, then I always got to chop it into a fine powder. I have friends who would just kind of crush it under the card and kind of smush it. You put the dollar down, you take the card and you just rub it around a little bit, and then just take the lines from that. I'm like, yo, there's still rocks in there. I don't want to pull rocks up my nose. I want a nice, smooth, fine powder, so you keep the nostrils clear all night. There's a good way and a bad way to do everything.
Discipline, they became more more focused. So it seems like really just like people handle things very differently, based on again I guess your values and your brain chemistry. And so I think for some girls, yes, it is very detrimental, but some girls I don't see it as detrimental.
Yeah, you're wrong about that, bro. And whoever was, I think Stephanie was or Lucy, I think both of you were saying that he doesn't seem to care enough, and that does seem to be the case. I wasn't picking that up before, but you seem to be right.
I would also say that with the I've thought about this before. Like, okay, like let's say you're a girl and you're working whatever. You're working like 40 hours a week. You're making like $30,000-$40,000 a year, right? You're barely able to get by, and you have to go into work and wear like a fucking outfit. It's a big drive. And then someone comes to you and says that, hey, you can actually make $40,000 a month, and you would only work 2 or 3 hours a day. Like, I'm not going to fault them for taking that option. Like, I might even take that option if I was a girl.
What'd I say? I'm just saying, you don't. Let's do a poll. This is for the men only. Men only. Would you? I already know you guys are gonna just answer as you. Would you do perm for all the money in the world? Let me know. Let me know. Lefty Lucy says, Coke has been used for centuries, but septum degradation is a new thing. I think Zippy's theory is correct. FDA shit kills. I mean, maybe. Because I think that these damn fruit flies, I don't know where they're coming from. I think that there's a tolerance aspect. So I've noticed that when I haven't done it in a while, like the next time I do some Coke, I'm likely gonna get stuffed up real quick. But I've noticed if you go on a bender and like let's say you're doing it 2, 3, 4 days in a row, then it seems like your body understands that you're gonna snort that shit up there anyway, whether it's clogged or not. So you may as well just open up. And I'm being simplistic about that, but that does seem to happen. Same thing with smokers, whether it's cigarettes or weed. If you are a smoker, you're not necessarily going to, cough every single time. You might cough, but you're not going to cough every single time. But if you don't smoke and you take one hit, you're gonna be dying. You're gonna be dying. I think the body just is adaptable. Somebody says, doesn't seem to bother them. I get the vibe he would rather not know. Ooh. Throw in shade. I think that's fair. That's fair. Cam says, I'd be the hottest girl. I bet you would. I would. Zippy says, money fixes a lot of things, and then goes into a different language.
I'm not going to fault them for taking that option. Like, I might even take that option if I was a girl. It's like, like money is like pretty, it's like the amount of money that some of them can make, some, not all, but some of them can make doing OnlyFans is like really tempting. And I can't judge them for taking that option. It's just such a better money making prospect than their current jobs. So I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, you and I are both like not into porn. We're not into OnlyFans. Even if we were, we're guys, so it could be different. I mean, okay, so let me ask this question. Do you think it's equally detrimental for men, or do you think it's different for men?
Can I'll answer that in just a moment.
Interesting question. But I wish that PWF would have taken a little bit more of an active role in this conversation. He was very happy to just sit back and be grilled, which shows a sign of comfort and confidence in what he has to say. But in terms of the entertainment value of the conversation, he's just, yeah, what? No. Why aren't you asking questions if you can see that he's not driving the conversation well? How long it's been since concentrated coca powder being taken through the nose? I bet CIA popular. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised.
Moment, and I'll give it some thought. But
let's go. I forget the question.
We're guys, so it could be different. I mean, okay, so let me ask this question: do you think it's equally detrimental for men, or do you think it's different for men?
I'll answer that in just a moment, and I'll give it some thought. But I just wanted to clarify: it's not about judging the women; it's about having compassion. Do you understand the difference?
That was so condescending. Do you understand the difference between these two words that I forget that he said? Like, bruh.
Compassion. Thought, but I just wanted to clarify. It's not about judging the women. It's about having compassion. Do you understand the difference?
Who was it? Was it Lucy who was saying, I hate when people just say, I get it. This is the inverse of that. Do you understand the difference between judging someone and having compassion? Yeah, they're almost very, they're not even close together. They're very, very far apart.
Well, I understand what compassion is, but can you explain to me what? Can you give me like more of an example?
Maybe, and let me reiterate: this is one of the things I like about you is I feel like you're your own man. You're not adherent to some philosophy, and you're not saying what every other guy on the internet is saying. You say what you think, and I like the fact that you're critical of other things. And so maybe your perspective is somewhat in backlash to like really hardcore manosphere types who enjoy slut shaming women. Enjoy like ragging on porn stars, like have a fun time, like, yeah, this bitch has been run through and no one's ever gonna want her, she'll be a cat.
Oh yeah, like I'm definitely
shout out to Fresh and Fit.
Definitely not in that category.
No, you're definitely not. But then I feel like your response maybe to that is to be like, to be accepting, to be believing and things like that. What I'm promoting is I don't want to be judging those women. What I feel is like a pain, like I feel a compassion. I feel like I understand, based on the amount of stuff that I've seen, the hurt place.
Nobody else is going to hit the poll. Come on, guys. Let me know. Yes or no. Men only. Would you do porn for all the money you could ever use? There should be 2 of you. Come on.
Traumatized place that they must be coming from in order to be engaging in that kind of a work. And so I'm not judging. I feel compassion. And I just wanted to see if you understood the difference of where I'm.
Wow, what an amazing person. He's such a good person. Like, can you tell how much he's a good person? Because he's telling you that he's a good, what a good person.
I'm trying to come from.
Sure, but you are making a judgment that it's a inferior life. It's a inferior moral path.
So
it's not.
Yeah, Stephanie says if you haven't seen it, you should watch the whatever episode with Candace. Really ties into this from the sex worker side. I watched I didn't watch the whole thing because aren't there things like 5 hours? I think it was somebody else going over it, so it's probably a Destiny video. But yeah, I mean. It was funny to see her. Just there was a sex therapist who was like, "Yeah, I have sex with husbands because their wives are not," and she's like, "That's not a marriage. That's not a marriage. You're not helping marriages. You're breaking them." Epic.
Not just
Yeah,
compassion, there's a
let me
judgment,
clarify
right?
that briefly because this will get a little bit dictionary-like. But what I'm going to say is that there's a difference between judgment and discernment. In that judgment has a moral quality to it, in that you're judging somebody to be less than. It's got religious overtones, things like that. However, the ability to
Yep.
discern whether or not something is good or bad is quite different. And so if somebody is saying, I don't like techno music, that can be a personal discernment of, oh, I've noticed I don't feel happy when I listen to it. It doesn't mean that they think that the people in the club dancing to techno music are less than them. That would be the judgment part of it. And so for these women, because the hurt place they're coming from, I'm not judging them to be less people, but I am discerning that that choice that they're making is not a positive choice. And that's what evokes my compassion.
Yeah, I understand. So I totally get what you're saying. You're not saying they're inferior as human beings, right?
Yep.
But you are saying that their morals or the moral path they're on is less than a girl who's not doing that, right? So there is a judgment. You're just not judging them based on, on their value as a human. You're judging them based on the, on their morals, right? Like you have to acknowledge that.
I'm judging their choices. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, they're morals, right? Because you would say that a girl, for example, who's pure and waits until marriage to have sex has better morals than a girl who's like a porn star, right?
Yeah, so now he's put himself in this box where he's saying, I'm not judging, but your morals are worse than mine. Circle that square, homie Grace.
Right?
Well, I view them as victims, so I don't necessarily view them as acting from a place of morality, but maybe just to make your case easier so we can have this discussion.
Again, maybe just to make it easier for you, because you can't handle the complexity that's going on in my mind. So I'll just dumb it down for you. I don't think that's his intent. But am I the only one that's getting this level of condescension from him?
What I will say is that if there's a porn star who is glamorizing the lifestyle and actively recruiting other women into it, I'm absolutely judging that. I think that that's a morally bankrupt thing to do.
Let's assume that she's not doing any of that. She's not recruiting anyone. She just does her own thing. She's a popular porn star. She makes whatever, millions of dollars, but she never promotes it. In fact, she says, hey, girls, don't do this, right? Would you then say her moral path is inferior to that of a girl who waits until marriage to have sex?
Great question. Great question. Finally, we have a specific yes or no question. We have a specific thing that we can actually grab onto. Like before, when PWF was bringing up Game of Thrones, and what did Grace do? Oh, you really want to talk about Game of Thrones? It's like, no, I really want to talk about something instead of just these amorphous ideas. He is a bit pompous. All right, thank you. And then, I just thought it wasn't me. Oh, that one was shorter? Okay. So maybe we'll cover that one in the near future. I know it's older, but still stays relevant, doesn't it? So let's hear the question again.
As, hey, girls, don't do this, right? Would you then assume that she's not doing any of that? She's not recruiting anyone. She just does her own thing. She's a popular porn star. She makes whatever, millions of dollars, but she never promotes it. In fact, she says, hey, girls, don't do this, right? Would you then say her moral path is inferior to that of a girl who waits until marriage to have sex?
I don't think so, but if you give me a moment, I just want to make sure I'm clear on my answer.
Yeah, take your time. That's kind of how I felt when you gave me that one question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it's a question of morality. I feel compassion for her, like I do. I suppose.
What do you mean by this, Quantech? The two these two are just the very ends of the spectrum of men. I very much disagree, because they're pointing out they're pointing out their differences. They're talking about the differences. But if you zoom out, then they are both like male content providers who will talk about female nature and say a lot of the same things. So I mean, maybe just in the context of this conversation, if that's what you mean, but I don't know if I could necessarily agree with that.
If she's ethically like lying to men, like we'll meet up, like if you give me this money and she doesn't do it, or things like that, giving them false hope, I guess she's contributing to a male loneliness epidemic. But I I mean, and again, this might be difficult to understand when so much.
Oh my God! Again. It might be difficult for you to understand. Just say it, bro. As you said, he's his own man. If he doesn't understand things, as we've seen in this very conversation, if he doesn't understand something, he will ask for clarification. You don't need to undercut you know, what's the word? You don't need to caveat everything that you say with, well, this is big brain stuff here. I don't know if you're smart enough for this. Lefty Lucy agrees. I agree with neither of these idiots. Yeah, me neither. Stephanie says, I think deep down, anyone would judge those choices. Are you going to take a girl home and say, yeah, mom, she's a hooker, but I love her? Nope. Comcast said, Pompous is right. This guy's arguing the definition of compassion. Like, what? Yeah, I agree. Amontifo said, when push comes to shove, he ends up being pretentious as hell. And this is exactly why I felt like I could bring this to you guys. Because it's not the most entertaining conversation, but we're getting a look at exactly what you know, is wrong with these types of conversations, and the my ability to point out what they're doing wrong, I hope is you know, the kind of stuff that we can continue to do. You know, obviously, I don't want to always be bringing stuff that's purposely not as entertaining as it could be, so that, you know, whatever. But we have a goal here, and as much as we talk about how this is just entertainment, it's a lot more than that. I definitely do have a message. I definitely do have a mission. You guys are definitely part of that. That doesn't mean we can't have fun, but sometimes, you know, this hasn't been the biggest stream. This hasn't been the most exciting stream, but I think it was important for us to talk about this and for us to learn about this. Wanted Foe says, oh, you got that one already. Zippy responds, it's kind of a catch-all for acknowledgement of a train of thought or tacked onto a query. Japanese, oh, you're still on that. All right. Well, maybe warn me the next time. You barely can type in English, so just maybe warn me next time you're using a different language. Somebody says that's a huge leap from P-Star to saving themselves for marriage. Right, but when you're trying to focus something down, you can't start with you know, the entire message. You have to start somewhere. So using an extreme example gives us a baseline. So then we come back from the extremes and we find that middle ground. This is why this is exactly why you need to be able to grapple with hypotheticals and analogies, because the best way to address hard questions is to make extreme versions of them and then work back from that extreme example, so that you're consistent with your values and your morality. Because it can seem one way at a certain scale, but if you go to an absurd level, the same principle should apply, but it doesn't. And you're like, oh, well, I thought that, but I don't actually think that.
To the internet and the culture is like tribalized and trying to get people, but I'm genuinely coming from a place of I have compassion for all of these people, and so my moral judgment doesn't seem to come into it. But I at the same time, I have extreme moral clarity, I feel, about what decisions are likely to be in people's best interests. I'm sorry, that seems like a cop.
I know better. I know what's in everyone's best interest. Do you know? I don't think so.
That answer. I guess I don't totally understand why that.
What? Oh yeah, you're good. I'll try to give you an example. You can think someone's morally inferior and at the same time feel compassion for them. Like, you know, I think I feel compassion for drug addicts. I really do. But at the same time, I think, you know, taking drugs is definitely morally inferior to not taking drugs.
Okay, why? That kind of goes against what you've been saying. Why is it morally inferior? It might not be in terms of you know, well-being. This is the exact conflation that Grace was making. Is it bad for you versus is it immoral? Those are not the same things. Is it destructive versus is it immoral? Those are not the same thing. This is what happens when you are loose and casual with your language. You have to be very deliberate and particular about the words that you use, because you know what you mean, but you're not talking to yourself. You're talking to everybody else who's not you. Yeah, I know better is hella cope. M169 said, doing what you just described is how I changed my mind on the death penalty. Exactly. That is how you get, there's only one way. There's only one way. And you have to be able to stretch your, it's not just what would I do in this particular situation. That's not a principle. That's just an action. If you say, I believe this is moral, this is immoral, either way, then that means that regardless of the circumstances, if the aspects at play are the same, then it should be your position should be the same. That's why like the trolley problem is so popular. You know, for those of you who are not familiar, like there's a train, a runaway train on a track, and on that track is 5 people tied to the track, and there's no way to get them off. There's no way to save them, except you have a lever that you can pull. But if you pull the lever, then the train is going to go on a different track, and there's one person tied to that track. And so there's different versions. Like, okay, what if they're all strangers? Okay, what if the one person? So like most people say, oh, I would pull the lever. I would kill the one person and save the 5. I would not, and I will explain in a moment. Then you could ask, okay, what if it was 5 strangers and your best friend? Okay, well maybe then I wouldn't pull the lever. Okay, what if it was 5 of your family members and 1 stranger? Oh, I'm definitely pulling the lever. The lever. But the same question, the same people who say in the original example where it's 5 strangers and 1 stranger, they say, yeah, I'm going with I'm saving the 5 strangers and I'm killing the 1 stranger. Well, you can change that around hypothetically and in an analogy and say, okay, well, what if you're now a doctor and you have 1 healthy person and you have 5 people who are going to die if they don't get different organs that you can, they each need a different organ. And you could take it from the healthy person and save all 5 people, but you have to kill the 1 person. Again, most people say, no, I would not kill the 1 person. And so to understand where your position is, to understand where your morality is, to understand what your values are, you have to take these things. You have to take huge leaps from reality so that you can stretch it out and understand what the logical conclusion to your position actually is. Lefty Lucy says, if P-stars were called whores, which is what they are, it wouldn't be so popular, surely. Well, that's why they call it sex work and not hooking. I am not doing a Yoda voice, but Zippy can learn much from this. Conflating they are. Deep generalization. To the point of conflation they are. That's as good as I got, because I've never seen Star Wars. So he said the accent might be making him sound a little more pretentious than he is. I don't know. Again, this is somebody that I've watched for a while, and I never got this feeling. But there's a very big something I've learned, which I obviously knew doing regular, recorded videos versus live streams. But it really became apparent when I saw people who were very snappy and had a big presence on camera and on the mic when they're doing their recorded videos, and they can do 1 line at a time. And then you go and you see them live, or you see them on a panel, or streaming live, and they're soft spoken, and they don't really know, and they're different. It's different. It's a different thing. And with a recorded video, you can much more easily craft and edit around and say things like, "Oh, that's kind of sounded like that sounded a little harsh, a little more harsh than I wanted it to. Let me re-record that." Versus a conversation where you're live, it is what it is. And so I don't think it's the accent, because I've watched a good chunk of his other content, and he doesn't seem to have this pretentious condescension, type of thing. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I don't think so.
I will feel compassion for, let's say, people who smoke cigarettes and they're trying to quit and they can't. They've been trying for so long. I feel compassion for them, but that is morally inferior to not smoking, right?
Again, no, it's not. It's more destructive. What is immoral about smoking cigarettes? This is what happens when you don't have a very, very, very basic understanding of how logic works.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think they're
But
not
that's the
mutually
separation
exclusive.
between the judgment of the action, the choice, as opposed to the judgment of the person. And I feel completely comfortable making that discernment. So I'm going to judge
Yeah,
those
you're
choices.
judging that. Yeah, you're judging the choices, but you're not judging the person, right? Yeah,
Yep.
I understand.
Yeah, I agree, Zippy. He should try and say he has a clear moral line and work from there, rather than trying to fight for gotchas. And I don't think he is trying to fight for gotchas consciously or purposely. I think he's been reduced to that because he doesn't know how else to get the conversation that he wants. This is what happens when you don't know what words mean. I think they know. This is just nitpicky, but I think I'm pretty sure they know what the words mean. But it's the fact that they're not being deliberate, that they're just they're trying to spit out their idea and get their idea out for them instead of trying to get the idea out for us. You want to say a thing, so it just comes out and like da-da-da-da. But if you want people to understand what you're saying, you have to be accurate with your words and you have to be clear with your message. And that has not been the case. Zippy says, if I read between the lines, immoral equals more negative outcomes. Yeah, that's how they're using it. Creating negative outcomes for yourself isn't necessarily an immoral act, but that's how they're using it. Yeah, they're using it as destructive.
Yep.
Yeah. So then by that, following that logic, then you do think that person is morally inferior. So you are judging.
No.
Exactly. That's what I said. Exactly. This is what happens when you do know words. Well, I mean, how long ago was it when I said that? When I said logically, if you're saying that it's morally inferior, then you are making a judgment. That is precisely and exactly what you are doing. Yeah, where are we? Yeah, they're definitely not being clear. Lucy says they change definitions every year, every day. Vaccination, pandemic, whore, racist, Nazi, white supremacist, anti-vaxxer. All of these things have been changed very, very recently. And 169 said, one equates morality with non-destructive behavior. That's what I meant by knowing what words mean. Yep, exactly. And the only I didn't watch this far into the video. There's, again, you can take that at face value, Tippy, or you can either way. I'm just telling you. But how else would I have known that is logically where this goes if I didn't understand the logic of what he was saying? Unless I already watched it and stole it from him. And again, believe what you want, but that is not what I did. These guys, what? Why did that to be? I have no idea what you're saying, bro. So let's back that up and see.
Making the actament, so the choice, as opposed to the judgment of the person. And I feel completely comfortable making that discernment. So I'm going to judge those choices.
So he's saying, I'm not going to say you are a bad person, but I'm saying that action is immoral. So if you smoke cigarettes, that's an immoral action. That doesn't make you an immoral person, but that is an immoral action. But the logic then follows that if you are a less moral person, then I am judging you and saying I'm better than you because I am doing the more moral thing. You can't say I am doing more good things and you are doing more bad things, but I'm not judging you. You have to then say, well, it's not necessarily morally good or morally bad. It might be bad for you, but that's a different thing than morality.
That. Yeah, you're judging the choices, but you're not judging the person, right? Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So then by that, following that logic, then you do think that person is morally inferior. So you are judging.
No, that's my whole point. Is that they're not, because I'm not judging the person.
Actions. Right. But you, let me try.
No, that's the leap that you keep making. That's why we're getting.
Nope, that's what you think, and you just don't want to accept it.
That we're getting crossed up is no. I'm not judging.
No, I totally understand. You're not judging the. Yeah. I totally understand. You're not judging the person, and you don't think they're morally inferior. You think that massive porn star has as much intrinsic value as a human as like someone like you, right? Is that correct? Okay. So I understand that. But by judging the action and judging the the morals that they engage in, there's still judgment that happens. It's just not based on the person. You're not making the full jump and saying, yo, you're a worse person, which a lot of people do. You're just saying, hey, this behavior you engage in, that's not good, right?
Right. So instead of saying you're not a lesser you're not an immoral person, you're just doing what is destructive to yourself, which isn't immoral. It's just not good behavior. He has to say, I'm not, or rather, it is not a morally inferior action. Smoking is not morally inferior than not smoking. It's just less destructive. That's it. Unwanted Felicity just doesn't want to be seen as a bad person because his dogma says that's a bad thing. Well, I mean, I don't think any of us want to be seen as a bad person. I don't know if that's a dogmatic thing, but I hear you. So he says, but you can judge what someone does and not judge the person. Sure, but you're still making a moral assessment. You're still making an assessment, a moral assessment. So you can't say you're not making a judgment. You're making a judgment on, he specifically said, I'm not making a judgment. I'm having compassion. Do you understand the difference? That's what he said. And now he's saying, well, yeah, now I'm judging the action. So if you're saying you're doing it, not again, if you're not, it's not that you're saying I'm judging that what you're doing is destructive, but you're still a moral person. He's saying what you're doing is immoral, but you're not any less moral than me.
What?
That doesn't make sense. That's not how words work. That's not how logic works. You can be a more destructive person and be equally moral, but you can't be a more immoral person and also an equally moral person. That's like saying, well, I'm not saying that they're taller, but they're different heights.
What?
You can't, that is connected. That is axiomatic. You cannot have people who are different heights without one of them being taller. You can't have people of different morality levels without them being more or less moral. That's his trip up, is that he's using, he thinks that PWF is making the leap. But the leap is being made because Grace is using the wrong language. So I agree, or I will again take at face value that Grace does not feel that he is morally above these people. But what he's saying is that he is.
Well, there's nothing wrong with, by the way, there's nothing wrong with judging. I judge people all the time too. Judgment is okay. I just want to like kind of clear that out, is that you can be compassionate and also judge people at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree, but I don't think that particular thread is that interesting to go down, because it's getting
we can move.
Oh yeah, it's not interesting because that is where you get into deep water. So that's it sounds like they're about to go on to another subject where they finish off on the Patreon. There was just about 20 seconds left, 30 seconds left of that. But what did you guys think? Especially if you are still watching, very, very, very much appreciate that. And if you're still watching and you're not subscribed, like, what are you doing? Come on, it helps out so much. And why would you want to miss any more of this? But if I think it's important that we we take little detours like this, and we kind of take things outside of a political, or a sheerly political perspective, especially as the red pill manosphere space itself has kind of died off. Then it is important for us to address these types of conversations and see why these aren't as productive as they could be. So the next time that you're in a conversation about dating and sex work and this and that, then you, by watching this, will see what not to do. And maybe you'll just do a little bit better, Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. I very, very, very much appreciate it. But of course, we got to shout out the sponsor of the stream, Unwanted Foe. Thank you so much. Very, very, very much appreciated. Of course, even if you cannot contribute, I do appreciate all of you guys. But the you know, I gotta eat, I gotta pay my bills, and the fact that Wanted Foe is willing to part with his hard-earned money, that means so much to me. And guys, I do want to let you know. That I don't have the technical know-how, so I am talking to a friend, but I am in the process of closing off the new Discord memberships for people who are not channel members. If you are not a channel member, join the Discord while you can still get in for free and be grandfathered in and never have to pay at all. As soon as I can figure out how to do it, there'll probably be like one channel for you know, just like a regular text channel for anybody who's not a member, and then the rest of the server, the voice channels, the after party stuff, the contests, all of that stuff, the members only content, all that stuff will be will be available to you if you become a member. And hopefully you join us before that so that you don't have to pay. What does Stephanie say to close us out? She says, when it comes to this subject, there is a moral component. It's not usually just between the sex worker and the guy. A lot of time, there is a wife and family at home. But in general, I agree with you. All right. I mean, can't end on a better note than that. Stephanie, thank you so much. Oh, did you figure out how to join the Discord? Let me drop the link here one more time. Especially because you are a member. Yeah, so just click that link. I believe you just either need only an email or a phone number, and that's all you need. And then if you're new to Discord, I'll be able to see when you join, and I could walk you through the whole idea. And you know, the different channels and all that stuff. It says, if you can't fit your thoughts in one sentence, your ideas are diffused. I love that. Exactly. Be concise. Thank you again, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I hope to see you guys in the after party. Until then, I have been your host, Lutch, a.k.a. the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.